Chapter 944, Mother's Secret. 1. Su Luo was certain that the old emperor knew Yanhua, so she asked in a probing manner. Your Majesty, you don't. The old emperor hurriedly waved his hand. You can just call me Uncle Ouyang. With your status, this title of uncle could be considered as me being a social climber. The old emperor also stopped using the imperial, we, and changed it back to the simple, I. Su Luo was even more puzzled. She asked carefully. Is Uncle Ouyang aware of the matters regarding my mother from back then? Being kept in the dark by beautiful teacher, being chased to be killed by the old witch Yanxia. You could imagine how depressed Su Luo's heart was. Even if she was chased to be killed, shouldn't she at least know the reason why? At this time the old emperor slowly sighed. Your mother was a fairy-like goddess admired by thousands under the sky. That time, how many men viewed her as the perfect goddess in their hearts? Could it be that Uncle Ouyang too? Su Luo probed with this sentence. The old emperor laughed bitterly. How could I even enter her eyes? Even the old emperor wasn't good enough for her? Seems like her mother had pretty high standards. Right, she even refused beautiful teacher. How could her standards not be high? Only don't know in the end, who was that person she saw as worthy of her? Then does Uncle Ouyang know who is my dad? Su Luo looked at the emperor earnestly. The old emperor thought for a while, finally shaking his head said, Don't know. What do you mean? Su Luo's eyes unblinkingly stared at him. The old emperor started to recall memories from former years. His expression was somewhat unsettled. At that time, there were countless number of people who liked your mother. But when it comes to the most outstanding, there were 4. For candidates? This would be a bit difficult. Su Luo thought it over with her hand supporting her chin. The first candidate is the nowadays Grandmaster Liuyun. Back then, he was your mother's adoptive brother. Even though the old emperor's tone was flat, but for Su Luo, it sounded like thunder striking down from the skies. Her beautiful teacher was actually her cheap mother's adoptive brother. It was no wonder beautiful teacher would order her to kneel in front of the painting of a beautiful woman on that day, and wouldn't let her get up. No wonder the old witch Yanxia would be so jealousy. Su Luo recalled the strangeness of beautiful teacher, and couldn't help but nodded her head. If what the old emperor had said was the truth, then beautiful teacher's strange behaviors were able to be explained by this. But with the relation between beautiful teacher and Yanhua, it also indirectly confirmed that Yanhua was indeed her mother. What about the second person? Su Luo asked in high spirits. It seemed that her cheap mother was really powerful. She was really curious if all those outstanding men had fall for her feminine charms and prostrated themselves in front of her. The second person is the current master of Purgatory City. The old emperor's words were shocking. Master of Purgatory City? Su Luo choked on her saliva. Before, a lot of people had told her that Purgatory City was very strong. It was the most powerful one among the 10 great forces in this world. Now the old emperor was telling her that the master of Purgatory City had fell to his knees in front of her cheap mother, because of her charms? At this, Su Luo immediately lost her calm. Uncle Ouyang, you didn't remember wrong, right? Su Luo's eyes opened wide. It's not like your Uncle Ouyang is a dotard. How could I have remembered it wrong? The old emperor got fuming made at Su Luo's doubts. Su Luo laughed a little. It's only too unexpected. The old emperor snorted twice. Back then your mother tied me to her side, so I saw these matters with my own eyes. Could not be faked. Su Luo pondered over it while holding her chin. Then why did my mother tie you to her side? It wasn't like she liked you. The last part of that sentence, out of humanitarian beliefs, Su Luo didn't directly jab it at the old emperor's heart. Chapter 945, Mother's Secret. 2. Old emperor's facial expression was stamped with awkwardness that was very prominent. How could he tell the girl before him about his hot-headed deeds from back, when he was a hot-blooded youth? As a youth, he had done a lot of things such as murder and robbery. Only because of bad luck he ran into goddess Yanhua. Then he was captured and enslaved at her side for 3 months. Uncle Ouyang? Su Luo waved her hand in front of him. For someone of his old age, it was abnormal for his face to become as red as pork liver. Abnormal, very abnormal. The old emperor, in order for Su Luo to not ask about those awkward incidents from his past, hurriedly changed the topic. He turned back to tell her some gossip. The master of Purgatory City was very good to your mother. Uncle had personally seen that master of Purgatory City waiting for your mother on top of the snowy plateau for 7 days and 7 nights. However, because your mother had to meet a mysterious person, so she couldn't go. Oh, Su Luo continued to ask full of curiosity. And then what happened afterwards? Afterwards, I heard that within a range of several hundreds of kilometers of that entire snowy plateau, an intense avalanche occurred. After this, the mountain went through a structural change, and it was also a permanent change. The old emperor rubbed his short stubble, with a cadence, told the climax of the story. So insane. Su Luo was dumbfounded from hearing this story. The old emperor saw Su Luo's dumbfounded expression, and couldn't help but to rub his chin in a complacent manner. In short, that originally tall and imposing snowy plateau, afterwards, had become the heavenly lake. At this time, Su Luo slowly spit out a breath of air. That venerable master of Purgatory City's reaction was really fierce. Also, his temper was insane. But then again, as the master of Purgatory City, who in the world could be his match? Being a little wild and tyrannical was only natural. Then as for that third person? Su Luo propped up her chin, her quick-witted, beautiful eyes turned. That third person was the mysterious person I just mentioned earlier. The one who caused the calamity where the snowy plateau became the heavenly lake? An interest for gossip flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Yes, that's the one. Your mother couldn't make the appointment because she had to receive him as a guest. The old emperor heaved a long sigh upon recalling this memory. Who is this mysterious person? Su Luo looked at the old emperor with luminous eyes. The old emperor thought for a while, finally shaking his head. His whole body was wrapped in a black cape. I never saw his face. As for his identity, saying up to here, the old emperor's expression suddenly seemed a little nervous. He looked around, seeing that there really was nobody else in the room. And only then did he lean close to Su Luo's ear, and whisper a few words. Guixi? Su Luo murmured. You damaged kid. The old emperor assumed a stern posture and glared at Su Luo. How could these 2 words be spoken out loud? Su Luo's pair of beautiful eyes blinked a few times. Innocence was written all across her face. She followed the old emperor's actions from before, and looked around. Afterwards, she scooted closer and asked in a low voice. Can't say it out loud? The old emperor also lowered his voice, seriously and sternly nodding his head. This is an organization of assassins, a very, very, very terrifying organization of assassins. Even Purgatory City doesn't dare to rashly provoke them, understand? To make a monarch of such an imposing country be so afraid, and even make the legendary Purgatory City not dare to provoke them. This organization of assassins called Guixi was seriously strong. The old emperor, afraid that Su Luo had not learned the lesson, once again instructed her seriously. 100 years ago, Northern Mo's royal family offended Guixi. In one night, the entire royal family was completely wiped out in the royal palace. Not even dogs were left alive. The original family, including several branch clans and direct descendants, were all wiped out. Not a single person was left alive. Speaking of this, even the old emperor's heart would tremble, because it was too brutal and bloody of a horror movie. Chapter 946. Mother's Secret 3. The Northern Mo's royal family used to have the strongest military power among the 4 nations. But following this event, the country rapidly weakened and became the weakest of the 4 nations. If not for the Xianyuan family strenuously supporting them, Northern Mo would have already been eaten away by the other 3 nations until nothing was left. Now, after 100 years had passed, Northern Mo's Xianyuan family could be regarded as having slowly risen up, replacing the royal family, and finally bringing Northern Mo to another high. The old emperor told this period of secret history so vividly, in order to leave an even deeper impression upon Su Luo. Guixi were terrifying, very frightening. Then who among the Guixi was that mysterious person? A behind-the-scenes boss? Su Luo asked curiously. That cheap mother of hers was really something else. Too intrepid. She ought to learn well from her mother. Don't know. The old emperor said truthfully. Back then, I also asked your mother, but she only smiled and didn't say anything. However, I am sure that person's strength was strong, very, very strong. Since there were no leads, then Su Luo temporarily gave up on it. Once again, she continued to ask in high spirits. Then what about that fourth person? Everyone else was like little tadpoles looking for their mom. She was a little tadpole looking for her dad. She also needed to pick one out of four. Really fucking easy, no? The fourth person. The old emperor choked on his own saliva and waved his hands. I don't know. How could you not know? Su Luo simply didn't believe it. Does the little girl think Uncle Ouyang is lying? I'm telling you, Uncle Ouyang really doesn't know. The old emperor, being stimulated by Su Luo, immediately came clean. Whether this person even exists is also hard to say. 3 huge question marks hung over Su Luo's forehead. The old emperor noticed that Su Luo was hell-bent on asking, so he cleared his throat. To comply with Su Luo and give her an explanation. He sighed. Your mother carried a white jade ornamental thumb ring on her body. At one glance, you could tell that the ring obviously belonged to a man. Pausing for a moment, he then continued. At that time I also asked about it, but your mother said that it was a gift from someone. As for who gifted it to her, that I don't know. Seeing Su Luo didn't believe him, the old emperor helplessly gave a deep sigh. That white jade ornamental thumb ring was of good quality jade, but the engraving skill was poor. At one glance, it was obviously done by a novice, but your mother clearly was very attached to this white jade ornamental thumb ring. The old emperor's face was full of fondly recalling memories of the past. At that time when your mother was chased to be killed, she forgot and left the ring behind. She didn't even run and immediately returned to search for that ring. It could be seen that, for her, the white jade ornamental thumb ring was even more important than her own life. The old emperor summed up using his own judgment. That man occupied a very important place in your mother's heart. As for who he is, in any case, your Uncle Ouyang doesn't know. Then who would know? Su Luo asked. Aside from your mother, I reckon only Grandmaster Rong Yin would know. The old emperor said, after thinking for a moment. At that time he was a taciturn youngster, and now he was already a grandmaster. The old emperor sighed again with emotion. For preeminent, outstanding, extraordinary, super high-quality men in the end, which one was her cheap old dad? Su Luo propped up her chin, with eyes looking at the sky. Her mind was turning around at lightning speed. These 4 men, which one was the father of this little tadpole? Su Luo felt her head hurt as she placed a hand on her forehead. The mother that she had never met was really a femme fatale. The old emperor looked at Su Luo with some regret. You should live well in the palace. If you need anything, just ask. As long as it's something Uncle Ouyang can do, Uncle will absolutely do it properly for you. Having heard what was said, Su Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 947, Mother's Secret 4. When the old emperor saw Su Luo's reaction, he laughed and said, Back then, if it was not for your mother, your Uncle Ouyang would been killed by Guisei long ago. So you just say the word, don't need to be polite. The grace of saving his life must be returned like spring water. Su Luo paused for a moment and considered it in her heart. Since Little Stone had mentioned the spirit dance steps, and now Uncle Ouyang had told her not to be polite, then might as well Su Luo couldn't be too detailed with her words, so she pretended to mutter to herself. Don't know if Uncle Ouyang may have any secret books of cultivation in your possession? The old emperor stroked his short stubble and laughed out loud. In Western Jin's book collection pavilion, there are countless number of secret books, whether its content is about physical strength or speed. You can take them all away, only what? Su Luo smilingly asked. But her heart suddenly had a bad premonition. Sure enough, the old emperor said. Except for the spirit dance steps passed down from the ancestors, you can take whatever else that grabs your attention. Su Luo's expression dimmed. Her eyes were filled with unspeakable disappointment. She had plenty of other secret books, she only lacked the spirit dance steps. Unexpectedly, the old man didn't want to give it to her. The old emperor seemed to have noticed Su Luo's mood wasn't good, So he carefully explained. This spirit dance steps was passed down by my ancestors. It can only be passed on to men and not women. It can only be passed on to children birthed by the main wife and not a concubine. If anyone dares to disobey, they will be struck by lightning. The old emperor really wanted to grant Su Luo's every wish. He really wanted her to be happy and cheerful, but these rules were set at his ancestors' requests. He really couldn't violate these rules, right? Su Luo smiled. Those rules are really harsh, Uncle Ouyang. In the royal palace, there shouldn't be that many people who can fulfill all those conditions, right? The old emperor heaved a sigh full of helplessness and worry. What, there isn't many? There is simply only one person that qualifies. Even though the old emperor's expression appeared helpless, but he couldn't conceal the pride and self-satisfaction in his eyes. Among the princes, there weren't many who would make the old emperor proud. Su Luo suddenly remembered something that little Princess Yulin had told her before. Ouyang Yunqi was the son left behind by Empress Yuan. In the entire royal palace, he was the only one birthed by the main wife. Sure enough, the old emperor laughed. Spirit dance steps has already been passed on to Yunqi. If you want the spirit dance steps, there is only one method. Su Luo's expression sunk slightly. What kind of idea was this old man planning? Don't think she doesn't know. Wasn't he planning to pair herself up with Ouyang Yunqi? She wasn't about to fulfill his bad preferences. Su Luo assumed a serious expression and stood up coldly. She turned her body and was just about to leave. The old emperor, seeing this, became anxious and immediately waved at her to come back. Look at you, this foolish girl, why so anxious? Come, sit and speak, sit and then speak. Su Luo glanced at him and then sat back down. The old emperor, seeing Su Luo's displeasure, started to use his fingers to count off Yunqi's good points. Yunqi, that kid you see, he grew up well, very talented, with high morals, and his temper is also very good. How is it that he doesn't meet your standards? High morals. Su Luo shifted her eyes, looking straight at the old emperor. Are you sure? Old emperor's heart started to become uncomfortable because of her continuous gaze, but in order to market his son, he still nodded seriously. Of course it's good, his morals are especially high. High my ass. Su Luo glared at him unhappily. Is he Ouyang imperial family's only heir to pass the skills to? Old emperor, I have no choice but to say, your vision is really lacking. You just wait for the day when he betrays you. Back then he could even stab her, who was very close to him, to death. Why would Yunqi even attach any importance to his cheap dad, the old emperor? You, this foolish girl, speaks too vulgarly. The old emperor didn't get angry and smiling said, how about we make a bet? Chapter 948, Mother's Secret 5. Not going to bet. As soon as Su Luo saw the old emperor smiling like an old fox, she knew immediately what he was thinking about. Therefore, she directly refused in one breath. Kids these days are really hard to raise. Old emperor gave a rueful sigh, but at the same time he was also grateful. Indeed, the remaining blood lineage left behind by that person stood out so much from the masses. Su Luo rose and took her leave. She returned to little Princess Yulin's magnificent gem palace. The princess curiously came up, saying this and that. In fact, she just wanted to inquire about what the old emperor said to Su Luo. But how could Su Luo speak about matters regarding the older generation? Su Luo also rambled on, talking about random topics. The little princess saw that she really couldn't get any answers. Only then did she roll her eyes dejectedly. The night was pitch black as ink. Now was the darkest period right before daybreak. This period was very short. Often, this time was when people were most sleepy during the day. Su Luo, who was laying on the bed sleeping soundly, suddenly opened her eyes. In the dark of the night, her eyes shone brightly like daylight, giving off a star-like brilliance. The corners of Su Luo's lips slowly curled up into a smile. Afterwards, she flipped over and got up from the bed. With swift and agile movements, she changed into her nocturnal clothes. Then, her nimble leopard-like body flipped out through the window. The surroundings were very quiet. All the lights were put out. The bright moonlight poured down like water, covering the whole earth in saffron-colored clothing. It gave off a hazy and blurred beauty. Su Luo was clad in black nocturnal clothes with speed that was as fast as lightning. She swiftly and quietly disappeared into the endless night. Before, Su Luo had deliberately inquired about the location of Yunqi's residence. After getting the approximate location, this matter became a lot easier. Su Luo could see in the night as clearly as if it was daytime. At night, the guards patrolled back and forth. But Su Luo's speed was a lot faster than theirs, so fast as if the wind was blowing by, immediately disappearing. She blended in with the darkness of the night, and combined with her unparalleled speed, even if Su Luo flew by behind them, they still wouldn't have detected her. Su Luo didn't stop along the way. Soon, she had arrived at the gate of a magnificent mansion. Magnificent Yun Palace. Seeing these 3 words, Su Luo's eyes flashed. That's right, this place was where Yunqi lived. But Su Luo's mouth still grimaced. Because as she was coming here, she couldn't help but notice, every residence in this palace had a name with magnificent in it. The same magnificent. From Yanhua. This old emperor was really infatuated with her. After so many years, he obviously knew he couldn't have her, but he still could not forget. The bitterness from a secret love. Su Luo quickly sorted out her mood, and noiselessly entered magnificent Yun Palace. Su Luo made sure that the sound of her footsteps were at the lightest, like goose feathers. She adjusted her breathing to the faintest so nobody could hear it. Yunqi's strength was unfathomable. Even up till now, Su Luo still was unclear about his limits. If she advanced carefully and slowly, it shouldn't go badly. She turned and jumped onto a high palace wall. Her delicate body hid behind the red columns with dragon and phoenix engravings, hidden by the darkness of the night. She lifted her head slightly, surveying her surroundings carefully. The candles were extinguished, not a single ray of light could be seen. The surroundings were very quiet, except for light sounds of snoring. There weren't any other sounds. But Su Luo frowned, finding that things were somewhat difficult. Magnificent Yun Place was so huge. Where could Yunqi have hidden the secret book? The study? The bedroom? Or a secret room? Su Luo frowned and pondered for a moment, and still had no idea. Forget it, just start searching according to his habits from his previous life. After thinking it through, Su Luo headed towards the most gorgeous building in the center of this residence. After a few jumps, Su Luo's figure fell behind some doors and windows. Chapter 949 Mother's Secret 6. Su Luo stopped outside the door, carefully examining it. This door hinge was not well lubricated. If opened, it would produce a sound. Su Luo hesitated inwardly, thinking of a way to solve this issue. Right at this time, Su Luo's heart suddenly jumped. She quickly turned and hid her figure behind a column. At this moment, the door up front opened with a creaking sound. A little eunuch walked out. Opportunity only knocks once. Su Luo quietly stole behind him, and her hand hacked down like a knife. The little eunuch would never have imagined that someone would dare to come to magnificent Yun Palace and behave atrociously. By the time he realized this, he was already unconscious. Su Luo dragged the little eunuch's body to a shadowy corner. Then she turned, and in a flash she entered. With a creak sound, she pulled the door shut. In any case, whether going in or going out, the sound of this door's hinge moving was the same. Su Luo turned around and realized her vision inside was very dark, nearly pitch black. However, this posed no problem for her. The Yin Qi from her previous life had a habit of digging a square-shaped hole in the middle of the bed and using it to hide his treasures. Because Su Luo didn't have any clues to start with, she could only begin from this point. Inside Yin Qi's resting residence, there was not a soul in sight. Su Luo secretly rejoiced in her heart. Fortunately, he wasn't around. Otherwise, she would have to waste a great deal of effort. Within 2 to 3 steps, Su Luo arrived at his bedside. This bed and frame was made from precious yellow rosewood with dragons and phoenixes engraved on all 4 sides. The curtain hanging from the canopy danced in the breeze, seemingly delicate and luxurious. This bed had an interesting and appealing beauty. However, Su Luo was not in the right mood to appreciate these, and she directly reached for the spot in the middle of the bed. As Su Luo cried out softly in surprise. Unexpectedly, she really had guessed right. The wooden plank in this spot was slightly different from the rest of the ones in the bed. Of course, if she hadn't carefully examined it, she definitely wouldn't have spotted it. She lifted up the bed cover, revealing nearly identical bed boards in terms of color and depth. Su Luo's hand repeatedly knocked on that center position for 7 times. 3 long for short. This was the agreed-upon signal from her tacit understanding with Yin Qi in her previous life. Dong, there was a slight noise. A square hole suddenly appeared among the seamlessly joined bed boards. Watching the wooden planks slowly moving to both sides, the corner of Su Luo's mouth curved into a complicated smile. If Yin Qi knew that she relied on his habits from her previous life to figure it out, wouldn't he be infuriated to death? Su Luo shook her head, abandoning the messy thoughts in her mind. At this time, the tiny door to the hole was completely opened. Inside it was an engraved wooden box, made out of red sandalwood. In the hazy light, Su Luo was able to see the words on top clearly. Spirit Dance Steps Rules. That's right, this was precisely what she was looking for. Su Luo's heart immediately was extremely pleased. Originally, she thought she would have to waste a lot of effort. Unexpectedly, she would find it so easily. However, Su Luo didn't actually directly take away that red sandalwood box recklessly. One had to know. Yin Qi had always been two-faced. He had countless methods to deal with people who stole his treasures. And the methods Yin Qi used to deal with other people, Su Luo had always been familiar with all of them. Her sleeve flipped over and a dagger emitting icy cold air appeared in Su Luo's hand. In the dark of the night, the dagger was like a clear spring with an awe-inspiring icy aura. Su Luo used the dagger to lightly slide all around the red sandalwood box. Sure enough, she found a secret, thin and long thread. This thin thread was linked to something below the red sandalwood box. If someone were to impatiently steal away that box, then the consequences would be very ugly. Su Luo followed along that thread and sure enough, it led her to a mechanism that was hidden in the corner. If she didn't cut the thin thread and instead directly carried the box away, then what awaited her were concealed weapons that could drill holes through anything, coming from all directions at her. Chapter 950, Mother's Secrets 7. Fortunately, Su Luo was very familiar with Yin Qi's behavior and habits. Otherwise, she would suffer a calamity at this time. This red sandalwood box wasn't something that could be opened easily. There was a special trick to open it. In this place, to stay here for a step longer would result in more danger. As a result, Su Luo placed the red sandalwood box in her space. She turned around and was about to leave. However, when she turned around, she was immediately struck dumb. Standing right behind her was Yin Qi, dressed in ink-black robes. Under the hazy moonlight, his facial features were incomparably handsome, especially that pair of eyes. So bright, they were nearly too harsh to the eyes. He just stood where he was calmly, his gaze fixed on Su Luo, unblinking and full of adoration. Su Luo couldn't help but frown. Coming to someone else's territory, stealing their stuff, and getting caught red-handed by the other party at the scene. This circumstance was far from good. The corner of Su Luo's mouth squeezed out a stiff laugh, forcing, ha-ha sounds. What a coincidence. It turns out you are also here as well. Saying this, Su Luo wanted to brush past him. At this time, whoever didn't leave was a fool. However, Su Luo, who was caught red-handed, how was she able to leave just because she wanted to leave? Just when Su Luo was about to brush past Yin Qi, Yin Qi's right hand, with one move, grabbed hold of Su Luo's right hand. The strength in his hand was too great, fastening around Su Luo's wrist extremely painfully. Su Luo raised her eyes and glared back at him. Let go. No. Yin Qi obstinately held onto her hand tightly, somewhat increasing the strength in his grip. Su Luo was in so much pain that she grimaced and humphed twice. Oh Yang Yunqi, I order you to let go. Only if I die. Yin Qi's complexion was gloomy, his gaze was like a sharp sword thrusting toward Su Luo. That secret book is more important than your life? Su Luo raised her eyebrows. When did your life become this cheap? Previous world, in order to preserve his life he would rather sacrifice her instead, okay? There was a trace of gloominess and having been wronged expression in the depths of Yin Qi's eyes. He clenched his teeth and took a deep breath. If I said there were difficulties that made me keep secret the motive in regards to the matter in our previous world, would you believe me? Su Luo suddenly raised her eyes. She looked toward him with a burning gaze. Yunqi lovingly gazed at Su Luo. There was an unprecedented earnestness in the depth of his eyes. Just when he thought Su Luo would believe him, the corner of Su Luo's mouth slowly curved into a taunting sneer. I don't believe you. Su Luo used all her strength to shake off his hand, and directly walked out. That dagger had accurately thrust into her heart without the slightest deviation. He even dared to say that he had to keep the secret the motive, that he had difficulties? What fucking difficulties? Just because he had difficulties, he had to kill her? For a moment, the depths of Su Luo's eyes were moist. She felt that she was extremely wronged. Seeing Su Luo leave so quickly, suddenly, the words she had said in the throne room yesterday appeared in Yunqi's mind. A sweetheart. She already had a sweetheart, so she wasn't patient enough to even hear his explanation? The veins on Yunqi's forehead stuck out, his eyes narrowing. Yunqi had a strong premonition. If he let Su Luo leave today, then he would lose her completely. The moment he thought this, Yunqi took quick steps to walk forward and pulled Su Luo, who had walked out explosively, to a stop. Su Luo turned her head around, and was just about to curse him several times. However, before she could open her mouth, Yunqi's right hand had tightly held onto the back of her head. His other hand tightened around Su Luo's waist, sending her fiercely into his embrace. Yunqi, what do you want? Before the two words to do could leave her mouth, Su Luo felt a dense shadow attacking towards her. Yunqi leaned over. His red lips covered her soft lips. An intense kiss like howling winds and torrential rain sprayed downwards. Oh, inwardly, Su Luo was extremely angry. She brandished her fist and smashed it ruthlessly towards Yunqi's chest. Chapter 951, Mother's Secret 8. Yunqi's figure shook slightly, however. Not only did he not let go, on the contrary, his kiss became even wilder. The probability of losing her without much extra effort made Yunqi furious, making him become a fierce male lion. He became even more overbearing than a powerful Satan. He restrained Su Luo, demandingly, as if only like this would allow his restless heart to obtain release. At this moment, Su Luo's heart felt extremely unwell. Yunqi was the person she was closest to. They once had a beautiful past. His kiss was like his temper, gentle and refined like a dragonfly that touched the water's surface. But it also would deeply absorb a person within this kiss. Su Luo discovered she had really changed. If it was said that when she first saw Yunqi, her heart might still have a touch of a particular ripple, then after this kiss, Su Luo was now certain. Her heart already didn't have Yunqi. His kiss made her feel really uncomfortable. Moreover, it gave her a feeling of having betrayed Nangong. Su Luo resisted, but Yunqi moved a step closer, as if even in death he wouldn't let go. Both of his eyes were tightly closed, kissing her indifferently, kissing her like he got carried away. A bright light flashed through the depths of Su Luo's eyes. Her hands no longer resisted him, rather, she hugged his lean hips. Yunqi thought it was because Su Luo's passion had awakened, so his kiss was even more intense. However, he didn't know, Su Luo's hand that was wrapped around his hips quickly moved, rapidly forming a seal. Very quickly, the great dimensional imprint was hanging over Yunqi's head. Smash! Su Luo angrily shouted. That extremely heavy great dimensional imprint suddenly smashed down on Yunqi's head. Yunqi actually had sensed it, but when he sensed it, Su Luo was holding on to him with a death grip, not allowing him to run. Therefore Yunqi was hit. Yunqi's pair of eyes became hypnotic swirls, his body swaying. He shook his head, trying to wake up. However, how could Su Luo let this opportunity slip by? Her hand formed a dagger, and hacked towards Yunqi's nape 3 times in succession. Yunqi swayed, then directly fell completely to the ground. Seeing this, Su Luo finally spit out a heavy and messy breath of air. Yunqi, you also have a day like today. That incomparably sharp dagger appeared in Su Luo's hand, waving at the place where Yunqi's heart was. The hatred condensed in Su Luo's eyes. Her right hand that was holding the dagger was trembling, Even she couldn't suppress it. As long as she inserted it down, she would avenge her hatred from her previous life. The dagger slowly approached, finally stopping over his heart. Slip, a clear sound of entering the flesh sounded. Su Luo remembered what Yun Qi said just now. He said he had difficulties. If she was to kill him just like this. Su Luo's heart drew back slightly. As matters stood, unexpectedly, she still couldn't personally kill him. Su Luo felt she was too useless. She took a deep breath. Yun Qi, in the future, don't look for me again. Just view it as if nothing had ever happened between us before. Su Luo bit her lower lips and stood up, towering over him as she looked down at his motionless figure lying on the ground. She said it in an ice-cold tone. Finished saying this sentence, Su Luo suddenly turned around and determinedly left. She already got the Spirit Dance Steps secret manual, and also through the old emperor's mouth, learned some secrets that happened back then. With regards to Su Luo, she really had no need to stay at this imperial palace anymore. Su Luo's footsteps did not stop, directly shooting out of the palace. However, before her feet left the imperial palace, she saw a crowd of people dressed in black rushing towards the imperial palace. Su Luo recognized them. These people dressed in black were absolutely the ones chasing to kill her. Didn't expect that they would get the news so quickly and rush into the imperial palace to kill her. Su Luo couldn't help but to rejoice inwardly. Fortunately, she had completed her mission and was preparing to leave the palace. Otherwise, she who would have been sleeping and dreaming right now, then be surrounded by this group of black-clothed people. Chapter 952. Behind was a force that chased after her. 1. Su Luo hid in the darkness, dropping her heartbeat to the lowest frequency. There were several strong experts in this group of people dressed in black. Such powerful strength was not something she could deal with. Therefore, Su Luo hid herself very deeply, not giving off a trace of noise from movement. This group of black-clothed people's speed was very fast. Almost in a blink of an eye, they shot into the imperial palace. They disappeared in the darkness of the night. A cold smile slid across Su Luo's eyes. Going to the imperial place to find me? Honestly, it was too late. This lady will leave a step before you guys. Su Luo noiselessly jumped out of the imperial palace. Her nimble leopard-like body, after a few jumps, had already flown far away. This moment was the darkest time before dawn, therefore, the streets were really quiet. There was only the blowing sounds of the wind by her ears. The bright moonlight dimly slanted down, covering the ground with a layer of saffron-colored light. Among this area of saffron-colored light, Su Luo's figure jumped and fluttered on the very high roofs. After a few jumps, she nearly covered a distance of several hundreds of meters. Not long after, was the city gate up ahead. The city gate was about 30 meters high. A normal person would definitely not be able to climb it. The city gate had always been able to restrain the common people. With regards to people who cultivated, the city gate would always be merely a decoration. Su Luo, with one jump, her figure lifted up like a swallow. In the blink of an eye, she was already standing on top of the city wall. However, didn't know if it was because Su Luo's luck was really bad. When she had just stood on the city wall, she didn't even have time to get a panoramic view of the city before she was discovered by someone. Ah, there is a person. The guarding soldier with good eyes saw Su Luo's black silhouette, immediately starting to shout out loud. Su Luo was speechless, directly sending a palm strike over. And this person swayed around before passing out onto the ground. It was inadvisable to stay in this place. Su Luo had already decided in her heart, so she turned around like a legendary giant bird and spread her wings, leaping off the city wall. This time, Su Luo dared not be so careless. Holding back a breath, she rushed forward. In this breath, she ran for nearly a full 2 hours. When she turned her head to look again, where would there still be even the shadow of Western Jin's imperial palace? When Su Luo left, she was running towards the north. By the time she stopped, she realized she was already deep in a forest. From the east, the marble white color of dawn appeared. Gradually, the sky brightened, the vague line of sight already becoming clearer. Su Luo was just thinking about resting, and to carefully think about the path she was going to take from now on. However, Before she could take out the delicious food she had stored in her space and take a bite, she could faintly hear the fierce sound of fighting coming from up ahead. At this time, the little divine dragon suddenly popped out of her space and shot towards the place where the fighting sounds were coming from. "What's wrong?" Su Luo's expression pulled back slightly and stuffed the barbecue meat back into her space. She followed behind the little divine dragon and stole towards the place where the sounds came from. Awo, a very familiar scent. While the little divine dragon was running, he looked back to say, "A very familiar scent?" Could it be that the person fighting was a friend of hers? There weren't that many people she was familiar with. Su Luo couldn't think of who it might be, but she had clearly accelerated her footsteps. The fighting sounds from up ahead became more and more intense, clearer and clearer. Not long after, Su Luo had already arrived at the battlefield. She didn't directly rush out. Rather, she hid on top of a tree with lush leaves and branches. Peeling back the wide leaves, Su Luo's gaze landed on the battlefield. However, this glance made her expression turn ice-cold. It gave birth to her anger, and the hands at her side clenched tightly into fists. What the little divine dragon said wasn't wrong. On the battlefield, it really was someone she was familiar with. Moreover, both fighting sides were all people she was familiar with. A group of people dressed in black was attacking a young lady from all sides without a care for their lives. Yenxia's, that old witch, evil intentions really wouldn't die. From the author. Don't be anxious, ha. Nangong will really appear soon. This time I'm not lying. Chapter 953. Behind was a force that chased after her, too. The young lady being besieged was dressed all in blue, with a distinctly beautiful face. Only, under the group of black-clothed people's attack, her face and body were all covered in blood. It was a ghastly sight. On her shoulder sat a plump little blue elf. That pair of originally perplexed eyes were now furious and bloodshot. The besieged person was none other than Ziyan, who had gotten separated from Su Luo before. Ziyan, being able to persevere until now, was already at the end of her strength. Very soon, she wouldn't be able to continue this fight. At this time, several black-clothed people exchanged a glance, sinister and fierce rays of light flashing through their eyes. Ziyan, who was tangled by the three people dressed in black, several of the other people had calculated well, and dodged to her back. Two of the people among them suddenly jumped up and chopped towards Ziyan's head. The other two people chopped towards Ziyan's feet. Up, down, left, right, front and back, from all directions she was sealed. Even if Ziyan grew wings, it would be difficult for her to fly out. A touch of despair flashed through Ziyan's eyes. She was really unwilling. With great difficulty, she had touched Su Luo's luck and gotten this adorable little blue elf. Unfortunately, in the end, she didn't have the luck to raise it. Seeing the swords chopping towards her from all directions, Ziyan closed her eyes in despair. Just at this critical moment, Su Luo appeared out of the blue fight. Su Luo angrily yelled. At the same time, Su Luo used all of her cards. The little divine dragon rushed up. In the time it took for him to take one vertical jump, he attacked the two people aiming for Ziyan's foot. He directly kicked, shattering their brains into pieces. The variant acacia tree wasn't to be outdone. It extended out two long green vines that were like two strong arms, firmly grabbing the two people in midair. The two people in midair were about to succeed, but they never imagined that just at this critical moment, there would actually be a vine that wrapped around them, stopping them. Then, it pulled back fiercely. They were completely unable to control their own bodies. They were dragged and sent flying backwards. Slam! Just at this moment, the little divine dragon's hands were free. He wanted to scramble for more meritorious service, sending another two fists towards the two people that passed his side from the throw. The two people gave a blood-curdling scream of pain. A fist-sized hole was smashed into their foreheads. But the variant acacia tree didn't get angry. This kind of partnership was very advantageous to them. As a result, just like this, the variant acacia tree would wrap around a target, and the little divine dragon would go up and smash their heads. One wrapped and one smashed, these two were extremely happy and busy. They simply considered this the most amusing game ever. Originally, Su Luo also wanted to help, but when these two undertook the task, there was no place for her to be useful. Su Luo hurriedly walked towards Ziyan. Ziyan turned her head and saw Su Luo. Her eyes and face were full of smiles. Luo Luo, you are fine, right? That's really great. Finished speaking, her body swayed, almost about to fall down. Su Luo supported her and said with deep concern, "First sit down, I'll help you treat your injuries. Not fatal, first kill off these awful and then talk later." Ziyan struggled to bandage her knife and wanted to rush in again. Su Luo unhappily stopped her. "There isn't enough of them for the little divine dragon and acacia tree to kill. You should just rest well." Su Luo looked at her with regret and sadness. Right now Ziyan's head, face and entire body was covered in blood. You nearly couldn't tell the original blue color of her dress. It could be seen these days, how miserably she had spent them. Su Luo sighed, sincerely looking at her. "It was I who implicated you." Ziyan bluntly waved her hand. "This matter had nothing to do with you." Su Luo shook her head. "No, the people chasing to kill you are that old witch Xia's subordinates. And the person she really wants to kill is me." Chapter 954. Behind was a force that chased after her 3. "Fairy Xia? Why would she chase after you to kill you? And me as well?" Ziyan's whole face was full of doubt. She had already harmed Ziyan by involving her. Su Luo naturally couldn't conceal it any longer and said, "The old witch Xia hated my mother. You see, my face now has returned to its original appearance. All of this is because of her." Oh, only now did Ziyan notice Su Luo's facial features. Before, when she saw the little divine dragon popped out so abruptly, she subconsciously knew it was Su Luo, so she didn't look carefully at her face. Now, with Su Lu stressing this, when Ziyan looked at Su Luo's face again, she was immediately gobsmacked. "You're this face." Ziyan was unable to move and stared at Su Luo in disbelief. "How did you become so beautiful all of a sudden?" This face still had the original facial features, only some places had subtle adjustments, until it became so beautiful as to have no flaw. "Too beautiful," Ziyan said out loud in surprise. Su Luo smilingly said, "There weren't that many changes, just shining according to the face to reflect a difference and nothing more." "What shining on the skin that reflected away the dust?" Ziyan expressed that she completely did not understand. Su Luo, having heard what was said, smiled. "You only need to remember, this is my real appearance, and that'll be fine. Before, in order to protect me, Master used the alter the appearance to change the reflection technique on my face. So it seemed at that time, the person who had placed her in Su Manor as an infant, was also beautiful teacher. Only Su Luo, after much thought, still didn't understand the reason behind this move. However, now with her real appearance having been revealed, Fairy Xia was already chasing to kill her until she had nowhere to run to. Also, Su Luo was certain that according to her cheap mother's intrepidness from back then, her rival in love wasn't only Fairy Xia alone. Alter the appearance to change the reflection technique? Really worthy of being Grandmaster Rongyun. Only he has the ability to do it. Ziyan leaned against the tree trunk, smiling brilliantly. If third senior brother was to see Su Luo's current appearance, don't know if he would be gobsmacked. She was really looking forward to seeing his reaction. Oh. While Su Luo was talking to Ziyan, she was also treating her injuries. Ziyan's body had many injuries, just knife wounds alone. There were 7 to 8 areas. In addition, she had serious internal injuries. Because it wasn't treated properly, several knife wounds were inflamed. It was a horrible sight to see. Su Luo first made Ziyan drink a full cup of high-grade celestial spirit water. Then afterwards she cut open Ziyan's wounds and made her take the rebirth of flesh pill orally, and also applied it externally to her wounds. Rebirth of flesh pill's healing property was very good. When the medicinal powder was sprinkled on the wound, the original wound that was bleeding profusely immediately stopped bleeding. Not only did it stop the bleeding, at a speed the naked eye could see, it also formed a thick layer of scab. Wait until this scab fell off, then you are completely healed. Su Luo let out the breath she was holding. Fortunately, there was no fatal wound on Ziyan's body. Last time, Su Luo had also used the rebirth of flesh pill on Ziyan, but that time, She was unconscious this time. She saw the results with her own eyes. Really miraculous. Ziyan clicked her tongue in wonder. Here. Su Luo handed the remaining rebirth of flesh pills over to Ziyan. You always get injured, take this, keep it at your side as something you can readily use. With regards to implicating Ziyan, Su Luo's heart would inevitably feel guilty, and always want to do something for her. Such a miraculous healing panacea. Ziyan naturally would want it, but then what about you? Ziyan uncertainly asked. Giving it all to her, then what's to be done when Su Luo herself got injured? Su Luo raised an eyebrow and smiled. I forgot to tell you, now I have already been promoted to advanced apothecary. I am now qualified to refine rebirth of flesh pills. Advanced apothecary. Having heard what was said, Ziyan suddenly stared at Su Luo. Last time, weren't you still an intermediate apothecary? Similarly, being chased to be killed, she herself was chased to be killed until she was battered and exhausted, with nowhere to run to. But how was it that Su Luo, this girl's luck was so great? Oh, she actually got promoted to advanced apothecary. Chapter 955. Behind was a force that chased after her, for Su Luo smiled proudly. Merely an advanced apothecary and nothing more. What's called merely an advanced apothecary and nothing more? Ziyan really wanted to curse her soundly. Doesn't this girl know, on this continent, all the advanced apothecaries added together, it wasn't that many, okay? She was only 17 years old. 17. A 17-year-old advanced apothecary, if it was spread out, who would believe it? Ziyan was so envious and jealous that her brain hurt. Wait a minute. She suddenly shot up, her body sitting up. Su Luo jumped from being scared by her. What's wrong? You can't move around right now. If you need something, I'll go do it. Ziyan pulled Su Luo's hand, stopping her. Her pitch-black eyes carefully sized up Su Luo from top to bottom. She didn't say a word, just in such a serious manner, stared at her. Su Luo's heart was somewhat scared from being stared by her. She licked her lips and weakly asked, in the end, what are you looking at? Was there a problem with her body? This girl, you. Ziyan was nearly stunned stupid. What's wrong? Su Luo's pair of eyes was innocent and bewildered. You are actually at the 6th rank. Ziyan was being long-winded and nearly couldn't stop her mouth. At the time we separated, you were still an intermediate apothecary and at the 5th rank. How many days has it been? You actually advanced in both cultivation. Su Luo smiled and gave a hee-hee sound. If you want to exchange with me, then I'll welcome it with both hands. In fact, the things she experienced, which time was she not surrounded by danger, and which time was it not a narrow escape? The two people both recounted what they experienced after they separated. When Su Luo was telling her about how the old witch locked her up and the Jade Lake's fairy took the opportunity to maltreat her, Ziyan became infuriated and coldly humphed numerous times. Liara, that slut, really is shameless. When Su Luo told up to the part where she took advantage of when Yen Xia, that old witch, was napping, and whereby she stole into her bedroom to steal her medicine chest, Ziyan laughed until her wounds almost burst open again. Able to escape from that old witch Yen Xia's hands unscathed. Sure enough, you really are not ordinary. Ziyan looked at Su Luo with unmatched admiration. If switched with another person, no one else would be able to do it. What about you? How did you escape during these days? Su Luo asked with deep concern. That day after I got separated from you, I went looking for wild fruits in the mountain for little elf to eat. God knows, halfway, there was a group of not-so-weak black-clothed people rushing out to kill me. Both of Ziyan's eyes were bursting with rage. My martial arts was of no use, so I could only try to flee the entire journey. However, they also didn't escape from being injured. At least, along the way, the original group of 50 black-clothed people were now left with only the few that you saw. Ziyan's deeply cold gaze looked at the dead people dressed in black on the ground with an angry expression. Along the way, only through the use of a countless number of tricks and schemes, was she able to kill this troop until they were almost all dead and disordered. Only at the end she really couldn't persevere on. If it was not for Su Luo arriving a little earlier, very likely, she would not be able to see the sun rising tomorrow. Finding a little brook, She asked Ziyan to go wash up. Su Luo again took out a complete set of female clothing and put it aside for her. Having a space bag is really convenient. Ziyan ruefully sighed endlessly. Rest assured, you will also have one later. Su Luo smilingly promised her. Space bags were made from cutting off a part of space. Wait until after she learned how. She would give one to Ziyan. Really? Then this trip of being chased to be killed is worth it. Ziyan knew that Su Luo's heart felt somewhat guilty, so she deliberately mentioned it. When she really waited until she got a space bag from Su Luo, presumably, at that time, she would stop feeling guilty. In fact, she never blamed this matter on Su Luo, let alone if it were not for Su Luo, she wouldn't have gotten the blue-colored elf. In her heart, Su Luo was her very, very good friend. Chapter 956. Behind was a force that chased after her. 5. After Su Luo finished dealing with Ziyan's stuff, she sat on a stone to rest, having been bored to death. All of a sudden, her eyes lit up when she recalled that volume of Spirit Dance Steps rules she had stolen previously. She still hadn't read it yet. At this time, being idle was still being idle, so Su Luo took out that red sandalwood box from her space. The box was neither big nor small. On top of it was engraved with carvings of a dragon and phoenix. The workmanship was extremely exquisite. This box was not locked using the traditional key and lock. Unexpectedly, it used a combination lock. There were 6 rows of gears with the numbers 0 to 9. One must push all 6 little gears correctly before they could open the box. However, the problem was that no one knew what the numbers Yun Qi had set up for his secret code were. Having somewhat of a headache, Su Luo covered her forehead. What is this? Ziyan, who had tidied herself up, walked over and saw Su Luo holding a superiorly crafted box and stared at it blankly. Ziyan sat down beside Su Luo, full of curiosity. Su Luo shifted further inside on the smooth stone, giving Ziyan some space to sit. Oh, it's actually the Spirit Dance Steps rules. Seeing this, Ziyan couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Isn't this Western Jin Imperial Palace's secret manual that can't be passed on to outsiders? How did it end up in your hands? Su Luo's lips hooked into a smile. What do you think? Ziyan was speechless. It's not stolen, right? Correct answer, but there's no prize. Su Luo flicked her finger. Let me have a look. Ziyan took the red sandalwood box and looked it over several times. Who would know what this code is? It'll take at least a few days of experimenting, right? A few days? The corner of Su Luo's mouth pursed. Every little gear has a probability of 1/10. 1/10 to the 6th power. That's 1 million sequences, my dear. 1 million times? Ziyan looked at her own fingers, then immediately threw the red sandalwood box back to Su Luo. At that time, your hand would already be crippled while the box still may be locked. What Ziyan said was true. If she was to experiment for 1 million times, her hand would indeed be crippled. Su Luo had no intention of using this sort of primitive method either. Is it possible to smash it open? Ziyan's eyes suddenly lit up. You should give it a try. Ziyan was at the 7th rank and extremely strong. Ziyan nodded seriously, took that box and transmitted her spirit power from her palm into that box. However, very quickly, her spirit power were cut off by an invisible wall and unable to enter even a little bit more. How very strange. Unexpectedly, I can't open it. Ziyan muttered puzzledly to herself. Su Luo nodded. I can't open it either. In fact, from the first moment she got the box, she had tried to destroy the combination lock with spirit power. Unfortunately, she wasn't successful. Then what are you going to do? Ziyan pointed at her lower jaw with one hand, and her distinctly black and white eyes looked towards Su Luo. How about you just randomly pick several numbers to use? Since your luck is so good, maybe for you, it'll be like a blind cat that finds a dead mouse. Su Luo was dumbfounded. With a probability of 1 in a million, you're telling me to randomly give it a try? Then what else? Can't smash it open, so we can only make wild guesses. Ziyan shrugged her shoulders helplessly. How about you just give it a try? Later, when you are unable to tolerate it any longer, I'll help you. Su Luo examined her finger that was fair as jade, then ultimately grinded her teeth and said, "Sure, let's stake it all." Only if she got the spirit dance steps would her speed be able to increase. And then her nothingness of space would be one step closer to being promotion. This was a process she had to go through. It was unavoidable. Su Luo crossed both her legs and sat down, placing the box on her knee. She rubbed her hands and began to take action. Naturally, Su Luo wouldn't do what Ziyan said and randomly find a number to stake her luck on. That 1 in a million chance. Even thinking about it, she felt that it was impossible. Chapter 957. Behind was a force that chased after her. 6. Su Luo started to recall Yunqi's habits from the previous life. In the previous life, they needed to use codes frequently. However, they rarely used number codes because they were too simple. 861111 was Yunqi's birthday. Su Luo prodded the little gears and aligned the number code in the same direction. Didn't work. Su Luo shook her head. This code was wrong. Su Luo's little head thought about it for a while again, and her hand movements was also constant. She had tried all the number codes that had something to do with Yunqi from her previous life. But what made her helpless was that, in spite of everything, she still couldn't find the correct combination. Ziyan tilted her head to the side and thought for a while. Did you steal this from the Western Jin's old emperor's hands? While Su Luo was busy moving her hands, she also shook her head. The old emperor had passed it on to his son. Then it's Ouyang Yunqi's. Ziyan had clearly also heard of Yunqi's name before. She nodded. This Ouyang Yunqi is indeed a character. These few years, his cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. Such quick progress truly makes people speechless. Suddenly, she stopped still for a while, with her eyes shining brightly. You stole this box from Ouyang Yunqi's hands? You're really incredible. Ziyan's words made Su Luo recall what happened before dawn in Yunqi's resting palace. That was a memory she painstakingly wanted to forget. Su Luo hurriedly changed the topic. We are better off thinking about how to break the code. Ziyan was completely unaware of Su Luo and Yunqi's past. She suddenly thought of something. Say, you think, could Ouyang Yunqi's code be related to someone else? Su Luo's heart was startled slightly. Ziyan tilted her head, automatically continuing the thought. There are very few people who have relations with Ouyang Yunqi. Excluding the old emperor, his mother is already dead. Say, could that code have something to do with his beloved woman? Ziyan simply touched a sore spot. The softest place near Su Luo's heart was fiercely obstructed, her expression becoming rigid. What's wrong with you? Did you think of something? When Ziyan saw that Su Luo's expression had changed entirely, she immediately sat up straight. Her pair of sparkling eyes watched Su Luo attentively, full of expectations. Cough cough. Su Luo cleared her throat and said firmly, "Who knows whether he has a beloved woman or not? Do you know?" "How would I know?" Ziyan spread out her hands helplessly. "Then forget it. How about you just continue to try random numbers? When you can't take it anymore, switch with me. I still want to try my luck and see whether it is good or not." Su Luo took a glance at her, then lowered her head to look at that red sandalwood box. Although Ziyan had just been chattering nonsense, but should Su Luo listen to Ziyan's words and give it a try? Su Luo's heart went ba-thump, ba-thump, jumping about violently. There was no reason for it, but unexpectedly, she was somewhat nervous. She tightened her hands and resolutely decided to give it a try. Seeing Su Luo's afraid she was about to die expression, Ziyan's face couldn't help but be full of bewilderment. Wasn't it merely trying a code and nothing more? Why did it seem as if Su Luo was going to the execution ground? Su Luo's birthday was 901,101. When she rotated the little gears in different directions onto these numbers, and just when she turned that final number to face the arrow symbol, Su Luo could only feel that her palm sweating. Click, a light sound echoed and the red sandalwood box opened in response. Not to mention Su Luo, even Ziyan was given a fright. For a moment, the surroundings became noiseless. There was only the sound of wind blowing. The two people's four eyes met, looking at each other in dismay. Ziyan licked her dry lips and pointed at that red sandalwood box and said a line blankly. It opened, Su Luo nodded blankly. Indeed it opened. Then, how did you open it just like that? Ziyan looked towards Su Luo with disbelief and then repeated the sentence. How did you open it just like that? Chapter 958. Behind was a force that chased after her. 7. The corner of Su Luo's mouth parted slightly. She shook her head. I also don't know. In fact, how could she possibly not know? When her birthday became someone else's password to open their case, what did it show? Su Luo's body stiffened, the hands beside her body trembling slightly. Yinchi. What did he want to do in the end? In the end, what was he thinking of? After he had done that kind of thing, how did he still have the face to use her birthday date as his password? Luo, why on earth would you get angry? Seeing Su Luo's tightly clenched fists, and the 3 veins bursting out on her forehead, Ziyan felt exceedingly perplexed. She really couldn't understand what was making Su Luo so furious. Wasn't the case opened? Although she didn't know how Su Luo opened it. But it really did open. Wasn't this matter worthy of being happy? I'm not angry. Su Luo took a deep breath and forced out a smile on her face. On the contrary, I'm very happy. Oh, then that's good. Ziyan nodded her head. Come, take a look at how exquisite the secret manual inside is. Su Luo changed the subject. To steal this case, there had been simply too many twists and turns and uncontrollable ups and downs. If it turned out to be a fake, Su Luo felt that she could even bang her head against some tofu. A slim, white jade-like hand lifted up the lid on the case. However, in an instant, the smiles on both of their faces froze at the corner of their mouths. The red sandalwood case was completely empty with nothing in it. 2 heads looked at each other. There is nothing inside at all. Ziyan speechlessly looked at Su Luo. I saw it. Su Luo couldn't describe clearly what her heart was feeling. Wasting so much thought, having dodged the heavy chases by the enemies trying to kill, with great difficulty, she arrived at the Western Jin's imperial palace. Again, it took more tremendous strength, on top of using the honey trap, before she was able to seize the red sandalwood case unexpectedly. It was empty. However, it's impossible. Ziyan tilted her head, her slender finger poking at that red sandalwood case. This thing has layer upon layer of protection, and it still has this combination lock. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem to be a fake. Su Luo nodded, expressing her agreement with Ziyan's point of view. Yunqi wasn't an average person. His gentle exterior hid his two-faced cunningness. Wanting to get a treasure from his hands, it truly was extremely difficult. Su Luo's hand pressed up tightly against the bottom of the case, touching it a finger width at a time. Seeing this action by Su Luo, Ziyan understood it immediately. Don't tell me this red sandalwood is double-layered? But how is it that I can see to its bottom at one glance? Ziyan gestured, comparing the inside level with the outside level of the case. Suddenly, Su Luo's eyes abruptly lit up. She had it. That is a smokescreen. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked up into a smile. Fortunately, the person that took the case was her. If it was someone else, they would have been confused until they were dizzy by Yunqi. If it was other people who, after strenuous effort and with great difficulties, got an empty case, very likely, they would abandon it. This was exactly a part of Yunqi's craftiness. Su Luo held the bottom of the case and knocked 7 times. This time, it was 4 long, 3 short knocks. Very quickly, the bottom of the case pulled back to the 2 sides. Afterwards, it revealed a thin book with blue background and black lettering. Spirit Dance Steps Rules, it is really it. Ziyan grabbed Su Luo's arm, hinting for her to take it. Su Luo very carefully took out this book. It really wasn't that easy. In order to get this book, it really wasn't that easy for her. But now it was all good. She finally got hold of it. Su Luo, thinking like this, then opened it to the first page. The first page blank. The second page blank. The third page blank. The fourth page. The entire book was all blank. Chapter 959. Behind was a force that chased after her. 8. Su Luo felt, that recently, her luck was simply really bad. With great difficulty, she had stolen it, and with great difficulty, she finally took out the book, but inside it was completely blank. Were the heavens playing with her? Just when Su Luo was about to curse the heavens, Ziyin suddenly cried out in surprise. Su Luo's attention was immediately attracted over. What's wrong? Su Luo asked. Take a look at this page, carefully examine it. Doesn't it seem as if it was smeared with medical juice? Ziyin handed the book over to Su Luo. Su Luo took it back. This book was colorless and odorless, really looked like a never-before-used book. But when Su Luo carefully touched the page with her fingertips felt something peculiar. This kind of feeling was extremely subtle, practically negligible. However, Su Luo really could feel it. This was smeared with medical juice. Su Luo nodded with certainty. But what medical juice was applied that is both colorless and odorless? Moreover, it had even almost fooled her. Ziyin thought for a while and said, Back then, I saw these kind of books that hid the original words in my master's study, so I was able to guess it. As for what medical juice was used, Ziyin muttered to herself for a while before saying, I remember Master had casually mentioned it at the time, but this memory of mine. Su Luo looked at her with a burning gaze. You slowly think about it, don't be anxious. How about you give me some suggestions? Ziyin wasn't an apothecary and wasn't very familiar with herbal medicine. Su Luo thought for a while, then especially chose some clear medical herbs and suggested it to Ziyin. When Su Luo mentioned pure white grass, Ziyan's eyes slightly lit up. She excitedly slapped the stone on the ground. That's right, it was precisely pure white grass. Master had once said, take the roots of pure white grass and mix it with the leaves of a mortal flower seed, and it could make a type of medical juice. This medical juice could wash off this kind of invisible medical juice, and make the original text appear. Pure white grass and immortal flower seed. Want to go to the dark forest to look for them? The dark forest was somewhat far from here. No need. Ziyin said smiling. I remember asking Master about it then. Master had said that the top of the Swallow Cloud Mountain had pure white grass and immortal flower seed. Back then Master had picked it from here. Fortunately you remembered. Su Luo smilingly said. I only remembered this prescription. Didn't expect that I would actually use it. Looks like my luck isn't so bad. Ziyin proudly shook her head. The blue elf at her side also immediately shook its head, looking dignified and strong. Su Luo was provoked into laughter. She took out an orange crystal stone to tease the blue elf. When the little divine dragon ate a crystal stone, there was always a loud crunching sound that made a person's teeth sour from hearing it. Don't know if this blue elf could ingest it. Before Su Luo could place the orange crystal stone close to the corner of its mouth, it had already excitedly spit out bubbles, with eyes giving off starry light. Seeing it walk towards herself with two short legs in a swaying manner, Su Luo was immediately amused. Really cute. That's right, moreover, it's also very smart. Along the way, if it weren't for its help in replenishing my spirit power, I would have been done for long ago. Ziyin rejoiced endlessly. Speaking of it, I really need to thank you. At that time, there was only this treasure in the cave. Furthermore, it was Su Luo who found it and cut it out. Yet, Luo had given it to her without the slightest hesitation. From that moment, Ziyin had considered Su Luo her most trustworthy friend. At that time, there were so many lumps of stones, you couldn't just sit anywhere and only sat on it. It can clearly be seen that your affinity with it is not shallow. Su Luo didn't claim any credit for herself. Moreover, with regards to me, this blue elf isn't very useful. Chapter 960. To disclose information 1. In order to repay you for giving me this little blue elf, I'll accompany you to dig for those two medicinal grass. Ziyin carried the little blue elf and stood up. The two people's speed were very quick. In less than a day, they had reached the mountaintop of Swallow Cloud Mountain. They stopped at the top of the mountain and looked down. Their eyes stared off to the distance, seeing only the continuous rising ups and downs of the mountains and precipitous ridges below. In the distance were rivers with trees, fishes, and a hazy atmosphere. Suddenly, a meteor streaked across the sky. What a beautiful scenery. Ziyan stood on the cliff, with both hands opened and eyes closed. In a manner of enjoying everything, she took a deep breath. It truly is beautiful. Su Luo's mood was unprecedentedly relaxed. At this time, Su Luo suddenly felt a burning gaze on her body. Her figure suddenly stiffened and she had an ominous feeling. A beautiful scenery with an even more beautiful person. A warm tone came from behind Su Luo's body. When she heard this voice, the hands at Su Luo's side clenched tightly into fists. Su Luo slowly turned her head around and naturally saw a familiar face. Ouyang Yunqi. How could he be here? Su Luo's eyes flashed with anger and stared at Yunqi with displeasure. Today's Yunqi was dressed all in white, with a jade-like face, very handsome and bright. As the winds blew by, his sleeves danced elegantly, simply godlike. This kind of Yunqi undoubtedly had a fatal sex appeal, let alone when he used that pair of deep starlight eyes to look affectionately at the other party. Who is he? Ziyan clearly could feel that the atmosphere was wrong. She quietly bumped Su Luo's arm. Su Luo's voice was very light and slow, but her words were very clear. Ouyang Yunqi. SSSS. Ziyan sucked in a breath of cold air. She knew that Su Luo's spirit dance steps rules were taken from Ouyang Yunqi. Now that he had chased them here, they must account for it, right? Ziyan leaned close to Su Luo and spoke in a dialect. Tightly seal the news by tearing face? 3 black lines appeared on Su Luo's forehead. Ouyang Yunqi's strength was very deep and profound, not to mention he cultivated spirit dance steps. With respect to attainments in speed, his knowledge was very deep. Therefore, it's not as if they wanted to run and could run away. As a result, Su Luo shook her head at Ziyan's suggestion. Oh! Ziyan helplessly spread out her hands. Since they couldn't run away, then they could only confront it. As a result, Ziyan happily smiled at Yunqi in greeting. I heard that Your Highness the Third Prince is very devoted with a broad lenient mind. You would not be this stingy, right? Only now did Yunqi notice the young lady beside Su Luo. He courteously nodded towards Ziyan. Perfectly composed, he said. To Luo Luo, I naturally would not be stingy. Such ambiguous words suddenly gave flight to Ziyan's wild imagination. You guys have met before? Ziyan always felt that the mood between these two were strange. Very strange. Yunqi smiled. He gazed deeply at Su Luo and raised his eyebrows. What would you say? These misleading words made others think even more of an ambiguous relationship between them. Su Luo's slender brows nodded slightly and glared at Yunqi with displeasure. How did you find your way here? Yunqi's face was full of smiles and calmly looked at her. Luo Luo, wherever you are, I will always appear there. Su Luo still hadn't reacted before Ziyan, who was at her side, directly sucked in a breath of cold air. An alert, earth-shaking boom sounded in her head. This matter was far from good. Su Luo's corner she was not firm. Just one carelessness, and a male third wheel had appeared. If third senior brother knew about this. Once she thought of third senior brother's horrible temper that would destroy the sky and wipe off everything on earth. Ziyan felt an extreme chill from head to toe. Although Yunqi was pretty good, but dared to steal third senior brother's wife? Did he eat some great ambition and get a leopard's courage? Chapter 961. To disclose information 2. Thinking of this, Ziyan looked at the extremely daring Yunqi full of worship and gave him a thumbs up. Ouyang Yunqi, you really have the greatest amount of courage. Dared to steal food from a tiger's den? Ziyan simply admired him to death. Yunqi slanted a shallow glance at Ziyan, and didn't mind her words at all. In fact, he simply did not know about the matter of Su Luo and Nangong Liuyun being together. Moreover, he also didn't know how strong Nangong Liuyun was at present. Su Luo coldly smiled at Ouyang Yunqi. In the end, what do you want to do? Ouyang Yunqi, sure enough, was as two-faced and cunning as he was from her previous life. Through a box with the spirit dance steps, he actually came to the top of Swallow Cloud Mountain a step before her. This person's schemes could be considered without holes. His shrewd plans were all top-notch. Su Luo, with one carelessness, fell into his trap. Yunqi swept an indifferent gaze at Ziyan, who was listening in with great interest. This young lady, can you give us some privacy? Ziyan opened her eyes wide. This Ouyang Yunqi was trying to get rid of her, so he could speak to Su Luo alone? Ziyan ignored him and looked towards Su Luo. Yunqi's gaze was fixed on Su Luo. Before on top of Cloud Fall Mountain, Yunqi deliberately lengthened the words and looked at Su Luo with a ghost of a smile. He had confidence and certainty in the depths of his eyes. A thread of resentment flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Ouyang Yunqi, you win. Su Luo stared at Yunqi, her expression unchanged. In a tranquil tone she said to Ziyan, "You should first step back and give us a minute." Ziyan immediately felt wounded inside. She still wanted to listen for a little longer, so she could report back to third senior brother. If it was only Yunqi trying to drive her away, then fine, but now even Luo was trying to drive her away. Between these two people, it was really strange, okay? Ziyan dilly-dallied, but finally, she still walked some distance away. However, when she arrived at a place with wind behind her back, she took out a white paper crane from her sleeves. This really was her last one. When she was being chased, many times, with dangers springing up and hovering on the verge of life or death, she didn't have a chance to use this paper crane. Now it seemed as if she had no choice but to use it. Ziyan took out a goose feather pen, and with swift brush strokes, she wrote down some words on the wing of that crane. Warning! A male third wheel has appeared. If you don't come soon, your wife will be taken away. Hurry! In order to give emphasis, to show that the current situation was extremely critical, Ziyan continuously used numerous exclamation marks. After she finished writing, Ziyan scanned it once, to ensure that information which needed to be divulged were all written down. Afterwards, she blew a breath of air at the paper crane. The paper crane suddenly came to life, transforming into a white crane half the size of a person. The white crane slapped its wings, and quickly shot towards a place in the distant horizon. Seeing the white crane fly far away, only now did Ziyan release a breath of air. Third senior brother. What's next will all depend on you. Not mentioning the little trick Ziyan did behind Su Luo's back, let's turn our gazes back to Su Luo. After getting Ziyan to leave, Su Luo glared at Yunqi. Ouyang Yunqi, in the end, what are you planning to do? Yunqi smilingly looked at Su Luo. He searched for a rock with a clean surface and sat down. At the same time he patted the empty space next to him, and with a graceful and gentle tone said, "Come, sit down and let's talk slowly." Su Luo glared at him in disapproval. Ouyang Yunqi, say it. What do you want? Yunqi raised an eyebrow while giving a smile that was not quite a smile. Luo, you have lost your cool. Su Luo directly glared at him. Yunqi smiled again. Do you still remember? The stuff I taught you when you were young. During negotiation, a person who loses their cool in the beginning will often lose. Su Luo conceded. A lot of her knowledge and skills were personally taught by Yunqi. It was the things that remained after he had finished playing with it. However, confronting him, Su Luo would always feel utterly discomfited and lose her cool. Chapter 962. To disclose information 3. However, Su Luo's brain had always been nimble. In the blink of an eye, she had grabbed onto the loophole in Yunqi's words. That's right, now our relationship is only the negotiations between two parties. Since it was just negotiations between two parties, then business could be conducted according to rules and not private interests. So it didn't involve personal stuff. Su Luo's words immediately cut a dividing line into the ambiguous atmosphere that Yunqi had meticulously built. The boundary was very clear. Yunqi's gaze condensed slightly, and he sighed faintly. Luo, you still blame me. Su Luo coldly sneered. Do you take me as having amnesia, or my heart has gone mad? Being stabbed once by the person I loved. How could I pretend as if nothing had happened? Yunqi's way of thinking was simply too ridiculous. Su Luo was completely unable to approve of it. However, having heard these words that Su Luo said, a pleasantly surprised expression flashed through Yunqi's eyes. You said, beloved person. Luo, I. Before Yunqi finished speaking, Su Luo hurriedly blocked him from having his thoughts scatter off in tangents. Those are things from my previous life, this lifetime. How could I still like a man who has daggers hidden in his smiles? You really still view yourself as too important. Su Luo's words ruthlessly hacked down from the sky, immediately making Yunqi stiffen in place. One moment in heaven, then the next moment in hell, it was just like this. A pained and helpless smile appeared in Yunqi's eyes. Luo, in the end you still blame me. Yunqi being like this could easily make a person's heart soften. If it was Su Luo from the previous world, she would have already went up and embraced his hips and buried her face in his chest. She would have repeatedly told him. She did not blame him. But Su Luo felt that she really had changed. Seeing Yunqi's smile full of pain, although the place nearest to her heart gave a thread of throbbing pain, but at the same time, she felt content. Really representative of the sentence, seeing you living unhappily, then I will be at ease. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a taunting smile. Blame you? I don't even have time to cultivate. Where would I find the time to blame you? Are you worth me wasting time over? This sentence was really fierce, really sharp. The smile on Yunqi's face became bitter and rigid. He took a deep breath and turned his face away. His lonely gaze looked at the distant mountain range with its exquisite up and down peaks. His voice was calm without a thread of unevenness. If I said I never betrayed you, will you believe me? Su Luo coldly snorted mockingly, clearly showing she didn't believe him. You don't believe it. Yunqi looked at her with a sour expression, his body swaying. So many years of affection. Do you believe I will really kill you? The hands at Su Luo's side clenched tightly into fists. Because of so many years of affection, it would result in her unforgettable hatred. Why would he think that just based on 2 kind sentences from him, that she would believe it? Before that brightly shining dagger in her heart, was it something that she inserted herself? Su Luo coldly sneered, her expression indifferent and heartless. Even though Yunqi's heart was sour and felt helpless at the same time, he still continued to slowly explain. At that time when we were on top of Cloudfall Mountain, at that place, it wasn't just the 2 of us. Just when Yunqi was about to tell Su Luo the entire truth of what happened at that time, an unforeseen event happened right at this moment. At this time, the eyebrows on Yunqi's handsome and bright face suddenly wrinkled. Even though Su Luo was puzzled in the beginning, but very quickly, she could also feel a dangerous aura approaching towards her. Su Luo took precautions and swept her gaze around her surroundings. Just at this moment, Ziyan dashed over. Luo, it's extremely bad, quickly run quick. Able to make Ziyan directly run instead of resisting, it could be seen how formidably strong the opponent was. Just when Ziyan grabbed Su Luo's hand and was about to dash away together with her, it was already too late. Chapter 963. To disclose information for. At this moment, a group of black-clothed people wordlessly approached and surrounded them. This group of black-clothed people, how could Su Luo not be familiar with them? Also, how could Ziyan not know them too? The 2 people who suffered under them empathized with each other. In such a short time, they had been chased to be killed by these black-clothed people while fleeing all over the place. Seeing the black-clothed people appear, Yunqi's expression became somewhat ugly. Su Luo and Ziyan exchanged a glance. They had a feeling that this matter was somewhat fishy. Because these black-clothed people stood in an unusual location, they formed a semicircle behind Yunqi's back. Just as if they were his subordinates. Very quickly, their guesses were confirmed. The leader of the black-clothed people took 2 steps forward and bowed to Yunqi. Young master, us subordinates arrived late, we ask to be punished. Young master? Su Luo's brows knotted tightly, a shocked expression flashing through the depths of her eyes. She could never have imagined that this group of black-clothed people were Yunqi's subordinates. Then what was his relationship with Yanxia, that old witch? Yunqi knew the matter was about to be ruined and couldn't help but to send a sharp glance at that black-clothed leader. Step down. His voice was cold and ruthless, filled with an ice-cold murderous aura from hell. The black-clothed leader's body moved slightly, and as expected, he obediently stepped down. The corner of Su Luo's mouth tore into a mocking sneer. Ouyang Yunqi, is this the thing you wanted to explain to me? Since the beginning when he first saw her, He had already known she was the target of that old witch Yanxia's pursuit. No, maybe he got her information even a step earlier than that. Then, when he personally went to the dock to greet the little Princess Yulin, was that matter as simple as it seemed on the surface? Whenever Su Luo recalled how Yunqi advanced step by step with a devised battle plan to force herself into a trap, a gush of rage that seemed to come from nowhere would nearly surge out of her throat. Right now, Yunqi had a very complicated expression. However, how could he explain this? Say that these black-clothed people were not ones he called over? Would she believe him? For a moment, the atmosphere turned cold, the surroundings issuing a strange factor. Su Luo tauntingly sneered, and glared forcefully at Yunqi. Yunqi was mentally exhausted. With endless helplessness, he looked at her who was across from him. Such a short distance. All of a sudden, he felt that the distance between them was very far. Yunqi knew that if they were really to fight today, the two of them, including Su Luo, would definitely not be able to escape. As a result, he half muttered a promise and waved his hand soon after. You guys can go. The appearance of the black-clothed people destroyed his plans. Now, how angry Yunqi was inside, only he would know. Su Luo coldly smiled, her deep gaze looking at Yunqi. Really going to let us go? Go. Yunqi's dark eyes contained intoxicatingly soft waves. Okay, then we are going. Su Luo, without demur, grabbed Ziyan, turned around and was about to leave. She was afraid if she stayed a second longer, Ouyang Yunqi would change his mind. However, they hadn't even taken 7 steps before the black-clothed people who stood behind Yunqi scattered and reformed a circle to surround them, encircling the two of them, not leaving a crack. A mocking expression flashed through Su Luo's eyes. She turned her head to look towards Yunqi. What? You want to go back on the words you just said? Yunqi's indifferent eyes were like sharp swords, bursting forth with specks of cold aura, shooting towards the leader of the black-clothed people. That group of black-clothed people all listened to the orders of the black-clothed leader. The black-clothed leader kneeled on one knee towards Yunqi, with his back straight, but didn't say a word. His posture was clearly one of waiting to receive punishment. At the same time, it was a posture to threaten Yunqi with. You dare to disobey? Yunqi's tone was flat, calm without a thread of unevenness. But Su Luo was clear that before her, it was merely the calm before the approaching storm. It seemed that these black-clothed people only listened to that old witch Yanxia's words. Yunqi still was unable to command them. Chapter 964. To disclose information 5. The black-clothed person still knelt there with his back straight, using silence to confront Yunqi's reprimands. These black-clothed people motionlessly obstructed Su Luo's way out. Su Luo smiled coldly. Yunqi, it turns out you only have this much power. Yunqi's face that was as calm as the deep sea now seemed like it was surrounded by dark clouds, stormy, struggling violently to stay calm. He turned his head, with hands crossed over his eyes looking at Su Luo, were filled with profound meaning. Luo, now, you only have one other choice. What else do you want to say? Su Luo smiled coldly. If you agree to return to my side now, I can keep you safe and sound. If not. Yunqi didn't say the last part, but it was obvious to everybody. If you were not one of their own, then you were an enemy. Su Luo's lips curled up in a mocking manner. You really don't understand me. Was Su Luo someone who could be threatened by others? You detest me that much? Yunqi gazed at her bitterly and despairingly. She'd rather die than return to his side? Just thinking of her choice, Yunqi felt his chest burst into flames, with rage almost tearing him into pieces. Yes, I detest you that much. Su Luo's words were sharp, without leaving a bit of affection. Having heard that, Yunqi's expression changed, his body also becoming as stiff as iron. Good, very good. He looked at Su Luo with ice-cold arrogance. Since this is your choice, therefore, the consequences are yours to bear. Finished speaking, Yunqi took a step aside. He made it clear to both sides he would not get involved, and let them fight it out on their own. The black-clothed people's leader saw this. His eyes darted a glance to the group of black-clothed men. He lifted his right hand and firmly swung it downwards. Kill. This was Master's kill order. Once you see Su Luo, kill without hesitation. Immediately, around a dozen black-clothed people surrounded Su Luo, leaving 5 people to attack Ziyan. When Su Luo and Ziyan were being forced apart, Su Luo said something to her. If you have an opportunity, then run. Ziyan nodded her head. You too. As long as there are green hills, there'll always be wood to burn. Besides, maybe third senior brother would rush over soon. Let's fight. Su Luo soared up into the air. Now the sun was setting in the west, dyeing the horizon a bloody red color that was savage and bright. The sight really was dazzling and harsh on the eyes. Below was an endless mountain range that rose and fell with uneven gorges. The sunlight that scattered down was golden and resplendent. Everybody was covered in a layer of tangerine red-colored rays of light. The dozen or so black-clothed people charged toward Su Luo. No matter who killed this loathsome girl in front of them, Master would definitely reward them heavily. Nobody could stop their treasure-seeking hearts. Su Luo stood there calmly, indifferently eyeing the people rushing towards her. At this time, she was calm and unperturbed. There was a plump little white dragon sitting on her shoulders. Not waiting for the enemies to get close, the little white dragon who loved to battle had already charged forward. Snap! A violent sound resounded, and the foremost black-clothed person was suddenly sent flying with one kick from the little divine dragon, sending him flying to a distance place backward. The little divine dragon didn't just kick him flying, he also very cleverly kicked him in the chest where the heart was. Huge holes appeared in the chest of the person who was kicked. He already breathed his last when his body was midair after being sent flying. The little divine dragon made the recoil strength and rapidly charged towards the second person. This time, like an exploding pond, he still planned to kick the chests of the black-clothed person. But because he learned from the previously person's mistake, this black-clothed person covered his chest tightly. All of his spirit energy was concentrated into his heart, afraid of the little divine dragon kicking a huge hole in it. However, although the little divine dragon oftentimes seemed foolishly adorable, occasionally he would get flashes of inspiration. Chapter 965. To disclose information 6. Therefore, affected by a flash of inspiration, the little divine dragon switched places and smashed towards his forehead. Hence, another man in black quickly fell to the ground. This matter happened in a split second. Although the little divine dragon had killed off 2 people, but the rest of the 13 black-clothed people used this opportunity to charge at Su Luo. These black-clothed people were very strong. 5 of them were 5th rank, 5 were 6th rank, and there were still 3 at 7th rank. Such incredible strength. If it were anybody else, they'd just commit suicide on the spot. How could they have fought them? But not Su Luo. Now the variant acacia tree had already started to move. The 3 7th-ranked men were the quickest to rush over. The knives they lifted up were ghastly and threatening, issuing a feeling of fear that was irresistible. The variant acacia tree could bind one away, but not all 3 of them at once. Just at this moment, Su Luo moved. She flew up quickly. Mid-air, her sleeves waved, firm with a cold expression. She looked like an arriving goddess. 3 long double-edged swords hacked towards her. But at this critical moment, all of the variant acacia tree's green vines rushed towards Su Luo, bundling her up in a green cage. Long double-edged swords hacked down, hitting the green vines. The green vines were tough and firm, only sustaining a minute amount of damage. Anger flashed through the eyes of the 3 7th-ranked black-clothed men. Originally, they had planned on directly beheading Su Luo in place, who knew that midway, such an unexpected event would happen. 1. Really hateful. What was even worse was that unexpectedly, this Cheng Yaojin thing was really tough-skinned. There was no way to chop it up. Just when these 3 black-clothed men were distracted, Su Luo's nothingness of space firmly locked up one of the 3 7th-ranked black-clothed men. Because no one knew that, after being locked up by the green vines, Su Luo could still quietly come out. Nobody could have imagined that Su Luo would have such a nature-defying tool as the nothingness of space. Nobody could have imagined that nothingness of space could penetrate through obstacles. Therefore, when everybody thought that Su Luo was still in the green vine cage, when they had their double-edged swords raised to chop at the green vines, Su Luo had already snuck up behind one of the black-clothed 7th-ranked person's back. Moreover, using nothingness of space to surround his body, thus slowing down his speed. Slash came the sound of a dagger. The sound of metal slicing through flesh was very distinct. Therefore this 7th-ranked man died immediately. Yunqi stood in the shadows, his eyes burningly fixed on Su Luo. His face would switch between cloudy to bright, with a very unstable mood. Nobody knew what he was thinking. After Su Luo successfully sneak-attacked a 7th-ranked black-clothed man, she immediately turned around, wanting to retreat. But there were many black-clothed people with safety in numbers, all of them displaying a high level of skill. This time, numerous strong hand seals attacked towards her back. Slam, slam, slam. An endless tirade of violent striking sound resounded. So many strong hits combined into one extremely strong force. The surrounding atmosphere was terrifying and was shaking violently. If anybody were to interfere, he or she would definitely be crushed into a meat pie. In the mountain forest, countless number of birds and beasts were shocked by this. They fled in all directions. Some were so scared that they fell off the cliffs into the abyss. This powerful combined attack was sent towards Su Luo's back. In a flash, the horizon became cold, the earth shook, countless rocks tumbling down the cliff. Bang bang bang. At this time, they were fighting on the edge of a cliff. Following the numerous rocks that tumbled down, the cliff immediately contracted a lot. Because Su Luo flew up quickly, so she did not fall down when the cliff disintegrated. But that formidable strong force now struck toward her back. A force strong enough to shake the heaven and earth, fiercely smashed towards Su Luo. At this time, Su Luo had nowhere to run, so she only could take the hit. Bang! A violent striking sound echoed. Su Luo's back was hit head-on. An unexpected event would happen. The more correct translation would be, who knew that midway, Cheng Yaojin would unexpectedly appear. Historically, Cheng Yaojin was a Chinese general from 7th century who, apparently, was always at the right place at the right time by accident. Now, popular culture picked it up and used it to indicate that something came along the way unexpectedly and disrupted the plan. Chapter 966, Nangong Liuyun 1. The sturdy green vines broke open in response, and nothingness of space disintegrated from being shaken. Poof! Su Luo spit out a mouthful of blood. Su Luo's body swayed, and only because of this she did not fall off the cliff. At the same time, the black-clothed people's swords, 12 swords in total, every single one was extremely sharp. Every sword hung horizontally in the air. Then simultaneously they launched toward Su Luo. People could barely open their eyes from the light the swords gave off. A terrifying murderous aura that felt like a vast body of water flaring up. This kind of attack that was an impressive display of power caused the surrounding air to make violent clashing sound. Every single double-edged sword's aura was as terrifying as a tornado. Let alone to say it was 12 swords that flew towards Su Luo at the same time? Luo. Ziyan saw Su Luo's situation. Instantly her blood ran cold, her whole body turning rigid. Yunqi's eyes shrunk back a little and his fists clenched tightly. Make a move to save her or not? Doubt flashed across the depths of his heart. Just when he was about to rush up, between heaven and earth suddenly a cold whoosh sound could be heard. In the distance, a black silhouette came over treading on air. That was a man whose beauty could suffocate people. Just looking at his ink-black attire, fine black hair was carelessly tied by silk fabric. Every one of his movement was honorable and aggressive with extraordinary charm that was frivolous and enchanting. He was so domineering, his whole body emitted an icily arrogant aura that won't let others approach. All the black-clothed people were absolutely dumbfounded. Now nobody dared to approach him, nor even dared to look directly at him. They were afraid that if they glanced at him, their bodies might disintegrate. Third senior brother. After Ziyin was sure of what she saw, she greeted him with pleasant surprise evident in her voice. The person who came was not a stranger, but the person Ziyan had secretly informed, Nangong Liuyun. After he received Ziyan's note on the paper crane, he did not stop for a second, immediately tore through the sky to reach this battleground. Nangong Liuyun stood in midair, with an icily arrogant gaze inspected the scene below him. When he saw his family's treasure being besieged by people, those usually indifferent pitch-black eyes immediately condensed out violent flames of rage. His treasure, he didn't dare to lay a finger on her, was now besieged by people who wanted to kill her. Nangong Liuyun's perfect thin lips pulled up in an aggressive and arrogant manner. Those who dared to chase after to kill this king's treasure really have the guts. Hardly finished speaking, Nangong Liuyun's body had already dropped down from mid-air. Who are you? Once the leader of the black-clothed people sensed the strength radiating from Nangong Liuyun, he was shocked to the bottom of his heart. The person who will kill all of you. Nangong Liuyun's eyes were obviously smiling, but there was no sign of warmth in them. She is the person Fairy Yen Xia has ordered to be killed. Could it be you want to disobey the orders of our master? The leader of the black-clothed people suppressed the fear in his heart, persisting on to finish speaking. However, it was clearly visible that his whole body was shaking and his jaw trembled. Old Witch Yen Xia? Nangong Liuyun cracked a lazy smile. How audacious! Daring to call our master like that. The leader of the black-clothed people looked at Nangong Liuyun with both shock and fear. Nangong Liuyun's eyes were like the ones hawks had in the darkness of the night, harsh and treacherous. These words, just consider it to be your last. Nangong Liuyun's gaze was ice-cold and bewitching. Wordlessly, he lifted his hands and made a hand seal. Immediately, a crack appeared in the empty air, countless number of wind blades suspended in midair. Retreat! Quickly retreat! The leader of the black-clothed people had more experience and knowledge compared to others in his group. When he saw the size and thickness of the wind blades, he could guess at their terrifying strength. Chapter 967, Nangong Liuyun 2. He wanted to run, but Nangong Liuyun clearly showed that he wanted to kill him, so how could he escape? Suspended in mid-air was a total of 12 wind swords. Every one of them was as long as a dagger, sparkling with a deeply cold light. Whoosh! Nangong Liuyun waved his hand dismissively. Those swords dropped down like meteors, cutting off the head of the black-clothed people's leader instantly. Clunk! This leader who was very arrogant before, would never again be so arrogant. His head and body were now separated into two parts, with the head falling down on the ground immediately after being cut off. It rolled on the ground and finally rolled off the cliff. This was really where the head resides in a separate place. Right now, on that cliff, was only a single headless man's body, lying there quietly. Fresh blood gushed from his neck. Very quickly everything around it was dyed red with the smell of blood hanging in the air. No one would have imagined that Nangong Liuyun's method would be so ruthless, so cruel. Fairy Yen Xia, who was a terrifying character that could stop children's crying at night, wasn't even able to scare him to a stop? In the end, just how strong was he, after all? The black-clothed people glanced at each other in speechless despair, and could only feel their hearts go bay-thump, while jumping violently. Their leader, who was a powerful 8th rank, was suddenly killed, just with one move? This man, just how strong was he? Nangong Liuyun looked at these black-clothed men who were obviously trembling before him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. That enchanting and mysterious face now seemed even more demonically gentle. Next, whose turn is it? Nangong Liuyun wanted to kill people, so the opponents had to line up for him. The black-clothed people exchanged a glance with each other. They wanted to flee, but their surroundings seemed to be frozen. No matter what, they couldn't run out. Since no one's volunteering, then I'll choose one randomly. Nangong Liuyun glanced over and picked the 7th rank experts who besieged Su Luo. There were in total 3 7th-ranked people. One had been killed by Su Luo, now only 2 remained. Nangong Liuyun waved his hand indolently and carelessly. His smooth-as-silk black hair danced in the wind. Swoosh! A distinct sound of wind blades slicing through flesh resounded. AAA! A black-clothed man repeatedly shouted in pain. Because Nangong Liuyun didn't directly kill him. Rather, he controlled that wind blade. First he cut off the arm that guy used to hold a weapon, then cut off a leg, and then, one after another, the wind blades came and went, continuously slicing at the guy's body. The black-clothed man's body turned clockwise like a spinning top, and that blade continuously cut the flesh off of the man's body. From head to toe, every piece of flesh was sliced as thin as a cicada's wing. Slice after slice fell to the ground. Very quickly the slices of human flesh piled up into a ball. Wah! Seeing that black-clothed man suffering 1,000 cuts, the other black-clothed people couldn't bear to look. Some even threw up. Ruthless, really too cruel and bloody. By now, the remaining black-clothed men had came to their senses. If they don't silently take action, then they would be silently killed. The incomparably strong man standing before their eyes had stated clearly that he was going to kill them all. Kill. Otherwise, we'll all die. Now the strongest person remaining was that 7th-ranked black-clothed man, because the leader and the other 2 7th-ranked black-clothed men were already dead. In any case, he had already noticed the formidable man before him. His next target was going to be him. Therefore, wielding his long double-edged sword, he charged straight towards Nangong Liuyun. Nangong Liuyun stood in place, calmly looked at him. Suddenly, his graceful thin lips curled into a chilly smile. When the black-clothed man was at a distance of 10 meters away, Nangong Liuyun's eyes flashed and gave off the pressure of a strong expert. Chapter 968. Nangong Liuyun 3. Swoosh. This 7th-ranked black-clothed man instantly exploded instantly, his body turning into a pool of blood. Was Nangong Liuyun even here to fight? He clearly was being tyrannical over the situation. Now Su Luo finally understood that sentence Nangong Liuyun had told her long ago. He said, "I never fight, I only hit people." Looking at the powerful god like Nangong Liuyun, Su Luo smiled. She hadn't seen him for more than a year, and Nangong Liuyun's strength had improved leaps and bounds. The difference was night from day. Only why wouldn't he even look at her? Su Luo couldn't understand. Nangong Liuyun was furious, and the leader of the black-clothed man, and those 2 strong 7th rank were killed. Now what was left of the mass of black-clothed men, although large in numbers, but they were not very strong. The black-clothed men knew they couldn't defeat Nangong Liuyun, so they simultaneously looked at Yunqi. "Young master." All of them kneeled towards Yunqi, eyes filled with hope and expectation. Everybody has an instinct to survive. Originally hidden in the shadows, Yunqi was now exposed. Yunqi frowned slightly with a complicated expression. He looked at Nangong Liuyun, saying in an indifferent voice, "Stay your hand." Nangong Liuyun glanced at him indolently, eyes black as thick ink, his demonically charming eyebrows lifted up. "Who are you?" Yunqi's eyebrows nodded slightly. He was displeased with the overbearing manner Nangong Liuyun had of occupying the top seat. But soon after that he smiled gently. "I am Ouyang Yunqi, don't know who His Excellency is." Ouyang Yunqi's name, Nangong Liuyun had heard of before. Ouyang Yunqi was Western Jin's genius that appears once every few hundred years. A lot of people mention them in the same breath. East had Liuyun, West had Yunqi for balance. This was the first time Nangong Liuyun had met with Ouyang Yunqi, but his eyebrows nodded. This man gave him a really bad feeling. Just at this moment, Ziyan ran over with thump-thump sounds, sticking a needle where it would hurt. She muttered in Nangong Liuyun's ear. "Third senior brother, he's the third wheel in your relationship." Having finished saying these private words, she retreated back to Su Luo's side. Nangong Liuyun's expression turned cold in an instant, pitch-black eyes exploding out with obsidian-like coldness that fell on Ouyang Yunqi's body. "You just said don't kill them?" Nangong Liuyun's matchless beautiful face revealed an exceptionally proud radiance. That pair of deeply arrogant and beautiful eyes authoritatively cast a glance at Ouyang Yunqi. Glorious sunshine reflected on his face. People couldn't help but sigh involuntarily. Just how beautiful and outstanding was this man? Ouyang Yunqi's eyes concentrated slightly. He didn't hear what Ziyan had told Nangong Liuyun, therefore he said conversationally. "His Excellency's cultivation is very strong. These people are absolutely your opponents. What is the point of using your strength to bully the weak?" "Sneer." Nangong Liuyun sneered coldly, shining like peach blossoms, his phoenix eyes narrowed dangerously. His indifferent gaze does not contain a thread of warmth. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile, and gazed at Ouyang Yunqi indifferently. A hand with protruding joints raised just a bit. Swoosh. A faint sound, Then one of the black-clothed men fell down and started to twitch uncontrollably. In an instant Ouyang Yunqi's expression turned ugly, his jaw tilting out with cold arrogance. His Excellency insists on moving hands? These black-clothed men were still useful to him. There was no point in letting them die now. However, Nangong Liuyun arrogantly, indifferently and coldly laughed, his beautiful lips curled up indifferently and arrogantly smiled. What can you do? What can you do? One short sentence exuded his natural ruler-like aggressiveness. Soon after, Nangong Liuyun waved his hand again. Swoosh! Subsequently, another black-clothed man died and fell to the ground. Chapter 969, Nangong Liuyun 4. Ouyang Yunqi was enraged. His pitch-black eyes flashed with specks of fury, scattering like flames. He was just about to fly up, when he noticed the corner of Nangong Liuyun's lips pull up into an icy sneer. You can't beat me. Nangong Liuyun was just like a falcon in the night, his face full of murderous air. As he was talking, he waved his hand, and the remaining ice blades pierced through the vital points of the remaining black-clothed men. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of flesh being pierced seemed endless. When the observers looked again, not a single black-clothed man was still standing. All of the black-clothed men were lying on the ground, bodies stiff, eyes wide open, dying with everlasting regret. Now Nangong Liuyun stood with one hand behind his back. The sound of his wide black gown fluttering in the mountain wind resounded. He radiated an icily arrogant and harsh atmosphere that was grand and stern. He gave in manner showing disdain for everything under heaven. Compared to him, Yunqi's atmosphere was a lot weaker. Yunqi stood steadily in place with a cold and clear glaze. He glanced at Su Luo sideways, but Su Luo's entire focus was on Nangong Liuyun's body. Those eyes were full of heartfelt joy and confidence. Before long, all of her attention was on him. Yunqi's eyes were as cold as deep water, tension visible on his face, and his smooth thin lips pulled into a thin white line. Could it be? What Luo had said before was true, and wasn't just merely to deceive him. She said she already had a sweetheart. Could it be this mysterious person in front of his eyes, strong and domineering man before his eyes? Yunqi's hands curled into fists in his sleeves. PFF Nangong Liuyun's black hair danced in the wind, handsome face filled with insolence and ruthlessness. At the same time he seemed mystical and seductive. He condensed out wind swords from both hands, giving off icy sword-like light. They flew towards Yunqi with a murderous, bone-chilling aura. Yunqi dodged the wind swords. But now, Nangong Liuyun had appeared close to 3 meters away in front of Yunqi. Su Luo's eyes tightened in an instant. If it was changed her, she absolutely would not be able to escape this lethally attack by Nangong. Just at this moment of life or death, Yunqi's tightly clenched fists suddenly exploded out with golden light. Golden fists fiercely smashed toward the Nangong Liuyun's palm attack. Powerful hit. Nangong Liuyun's body didn't move, but Yunqi's figure swayed a little. If Yunqi took several steps back, he could disperse the power of the strike. But at this time, he stood still and suffered the full force of this punch. Nangong Liuyun's mouth curled into a cold smile. Foolish. This was his evaluation of Yunqi. A string of coldness passed through Yunqi's gentle eyes, and he smiled indifferently. You wouldn't understand. Nangong Liuyun narrowed his cold penetrating eyes, like a falcon in a grass field, threatening. From the moment you coveted Luo, you had walked on the road to death. Yunqi's heart sank suddenly. As expected, the man before him liked Luo. He came because of Luo. And Luo. Yunqi didn't dare to look Su Luo in the eyes, but he glanced at her out of the corner of his eyes. At that time, Su Luo's unreasonably beautiful eyes were filled with concern for the man in front of her. She was so stingy that she wasn't even willing to look at him from the corner of her eyes. Yunqi's face immediately sank, his heart filled with unspeakable pain as if a lump was stuck in his throat, so that he couldn't even say a single word. Nangong Liuyun followed Yunqi's gaze, his lips curled up demonically. Luo is mine forever. Yunqi's heart felt agitated and angry. A raw and sharply cold aura passed through his eyes. Suddenly, he laughed coldly. I knew Luo long before you, do you believe it? Nangong Liuyun's cold eyes glared straight at him, smiling coldly. This expression of his clearly showed he didn't believe it. Chapter 970, Nangong Liuyun 5. Noticing Nangong Liuyun's disbelief, the sneer on Ouyang Yunqi's lips became even more obvious. But it is the truth. Obviously, he met Luo Luo earlier. Obviously, he was with Luo Luo earlier. Now why should he withdraw? Yunqi clenched his fists, his heart cold from being right. Luo Luo was ultimately his, must be his. Nangong Liuyun's black as ink eyes flashed with dark fury. Dared to say he had met Luo Luo earlier? He simply had a death wish. Regardless of whether he met Luo Luo earlier or not, regardless of whether his statement had a foundation or not, once the person dies, everything would be finished. Nangong Liuyun was sure of this point. Suddenly, a long sword appeared in Nangong Liuyun's hand. Shining brightly, the sword glittered coldly in mid-air. He flew toward him, black as ink robes giving off a strong seductiveness. Fast, he was really too fast. Nangong Liuyun's sword was one with his body. The sword's tip was directed right at Yunqi's throat. Because of Nangong Liuyun's speed and strength, Yunqi had absolutely no way to avoid it. Su Luo's eyes narrowed. Unconsciously her hand clenched into fists. Yunqi, would he die just like this? Su Luo couldn't say what exactly she was thinking. She only felt endlessly at a loss of what to do. Don't know how she should react. Yunqi never expected that when Nangong Liuyun said he would make a move, he would move. Only when Nangong Liuyun's sword's tip pointed at his throat did he return to his senses. Such a strong and fierce killing move. How could he avoid it? Just at this moment of imminent peril, Yunqi's figure abruptly shortened. The sword only cut a strand of hair. At the same time, a line of blood appeared on Yunqi's smooth as jade face. Although he was hurt, but he still managed to dodge lethal attack. Ziyin shook her head regretfully. Pity, such a pity. Su Luo had a complicated expression on her face as she looked at these two men. Yunqi's figure retreated backward quickly, and he smiled coldly. It seems that His Highness Prince Jin is only just SSO himself. Flying sword from beyond the sky. Nangong Liuyun's unique lethal attack. Yunqi had now confirmed Nangong Liuyun's rank. This was within his expectations. Because he knew, his Luo Luo's eyesight would not be that bad. The person she would notice was at least at the same level as him. Nangong Liuyun's cold eyebrow lifted up slightly. He laughed instead of being angry. Ouyang Yunqi, did you really expect that there was just this one move from the flying sword from beyond the sky? Saying this, the sword in Nangong Liuyun's hand rose into the sky and split into two. One black and one white. The two swords charged toward separately Yunqi. Its speed was simply terrifying to the extreme. Two swords, one in front, one behind, forming a battle array, a unique killing technique. Nobody could dodge it. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. That one black and one white swords flashed by Su Luo's eyes. Suddenly a light of inspiration flashed through her eyes, coming to some sort of a realization. But because the speed was simply too fast, so before Su Luo could comprehend the true essence of speed, those swords had already flown towards Yunqi. Just when everybody was sure that this time, Yunqi would die for sure, in the moment right before the swords could pierce Yunqi's body swoosh, in nearly the blink of an eye, Yunqi's body suddenly blurred, and then he wasn't visible to the naked eye at all. What happened? A touch of doubt and puzzlement flashed through Su Luo's eyes. How could Yunqi have disappeared in place? Ziyin, as if suddenly having just remembered something, clenched her fists and waved them above emotionally. Concealing technique. Ouyang Yunqi actually knows the concealing technique long lost from this continent. Concealing technique? There actually exists such a mysterious thing? Su Luo's eyes darted towards where Yunqi was last seen. The place had a whitish mist the same color as the sky, completely unable to see where Yunqi was hiding. Chapter 971, Nangong Liuyun 6. Su Luo's gaze turned to Nangong Liuyun. With Yunqi's escape, would Nangong Liuyun be angry? Right now, Nangong Liuyun's lips curled into a demonically enchanting smile. Concealing technique? TCH, let's see how long you can hide. Nangong Liuyun was well-read and knowledgeable. Within 3 years, he had read all the books in the libraries of the capital. Therefore, there was little he did not know about in this world. The concealing technique was very foreign to a lot of people, but Nangong Liuyun knew about it. Elementary concealing technique could only hide a person for 10 seconds. Suddenly, a sarcastic cold smile flashed across Nangong Liuyun's eyes. Because he could feel a cold, sinister figure heading toward him from behind. Yunqi won't take the roads to heaven but with no doors to hell, you insisted on rushing in. You had 10 seconds to run but you passed it up. Nangong Liuyun's spirit powers suddenly condensed around his entire body, as if he was wearing heavy armor. However, other people could not see it. Crack! A punch smashed towards Nangong Liuyun's back. At the same time, Yunqi's figure gradually appeared. This was a punch that contained all of Yunqi's combined strength combined. The violent sound of explosion screamed through the air, very imposing and earth-shaking. Although Su Luo was a long distance away, but she still was affected by the wind from the fist's attack. She only felt a sweet taste in her throat and a mouthful of blood sprayed out. Ziyan was affected even more miserably than Su Luo. Her wound that had scabbed over with great difficulty, being influenced by the fist's attack, had all opened up again with blood gushing out. Being affected only by the light, Su Luo and Ziyan was already like this. It could be seen how great the strength Nangong Liuyun had to endure. Having delivered that punch by surprise, Yunqi thought that Nangong Liuyun would at least be seriously injured. However, he had really underestimated Nangong Liuyun's current strength. One could only see Nangong Liuyun return to his senses slowly, his eyes like a god that was high up in the clouds, looking down at all the mortals below him. He calmly smirked, looked at Yunqi and sneered. Is this all of your strength? Right now Nangong Liuyun's expression was as usual, movements were as usual. Clearly he hasn't sustained any injuries whatsoever. At this moment Yunqi's facial expression was unable to move. Momentarily he was speechless. Nangong Liuyun was as detached and cold as a god. You are too weak. Yunqi had condensed out all of this strength, yet he couldn't even break Nangong Liuyun's defenses. Then how could this be said to be a confrontation? These two people were simply not at the same level. Yunqi's body momentarily went rigid. His eyes were as cold as ice, staring at Nangong Liuyun. Although he didn't want to admit it, he still had to admit that Nangong Liuyun was stronger than him. And not only by a little bit. In fact, he couldn't even break his defense, let alone to say how to kill him. For a moment, Yunqi's face flickered from cloudy to bright, difficult to understand his feelings. Nangong Liuyun's eyes were like cold stars and said in a flat tone, how do you want to die? Su Luo's heart was slightly obstructed. Nangong Liuyun was being a bit too aggressive, okay? In any case, his opponent was Ouyang Yunqi, who was once equally famous as him. Now he was letting the opponent to choose his own method of death? Yunqi's face stiffened slightly, but he quickly voiced to a sneer. You wouldn't dare to kill me. Yunqi looked at Nangong Liuyun fearlessly, eyes bright with complete confidence. Nangong Liuyun's sleeves fluttered in the wind, as if in the next moment he would take his life. But Yunqi's lips hooked up a few times. If you killed me, Luo Luo will never forgive you. This one sentence from Yunqi had pulled Su Luo in from being just an observer. This statement was like a huge rock being thrown into a calm lake, immediately setting off terrifying waves. Chapter 972. Nangong Liuyun 7. Su Luo stood frozen in place, looking at Yunqi in disbelief. When he personally killed her, how could he still say something like this so confidently? Nangong Liuyun's gaze casted toward Su Luo. The instant he saw Su Luo, his eyes flashed slightly. Before, he believed in what Ziyan wrote about a third will trying to steal Luo girl. He took his anger out on her, so after arriving here he was focused on destroying his opponent that he deliberately did not look at her. That face was full of being peeved, but now this. When Nangong Liuyun saw Su Luo's face, he suddenly felt alarmed. He immediately tossed Yunqi to the side. He quickly walked towards Su Luo, stopping 3 steps away from her. His bright as star-like eyes looked at her in daze. For a long time he did not speak. A little divine dragon was standing on this young lady's shoulders. This was definitely Luo girl. But Nangong Liuyun with great difficulty swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This lady was simply too beautiful, nearly making him lose his senses. At this time, in Nangong Liuyun's eyes, Yunqi could go to hell for all he cared. He was only looking at Su Luo now. You. Nangong Liuyun's eyes looked slightly nervous, and looked at Su Luo a little anxiously. He called out cautiously in an inquiring manner. Luo Luo? Su Luo simply wanted to roll her eyes. This man seriously didn't recognize her? Su Luo unhappily nodded her head. This expression, these eyes, this was definitely his Luo girl. Your face how? Nangong Liuyun's face was no longer calm. Ink-black pair of eyes twinkling like stars. Do you like it? Su Luo asked without answering. She narrowed her eyes halfway and smilingly looked at him. Nangong Liuyun nodded his head hurriedly. I like it. Of course, I like it. Luckily I become beautiful. If I become ugly you wouldn't like it. Su Luo intentionally provoked him. Nangong Liuyun hurriedly waved his hand to deny it. How could I? No matter what Luo girl's appearance changed into, this king will it. At this time, Nangong Liuyun had a very seriousness expression, simply like a small kid. Where did all of that aggressive intenseness of a king go? Ziyan watched until her eyes was straight. This childlike person in front of her eyes was really that third senior brother, who never let people get near to him? Ziyan rubbed her eyes and rubbed it again, until she was finally sure the scene in front of her was not a hallucination. Yunqi's eyebrows unconsciously rose up. Those two figures, one tall and one short, stood facing each other. The man was incomparably handsome. The woman was devastating beautiful. The two people were like a celestial couple, with inseparable loving affection lingering around them. Such a beautiful picture of a celestial couple. He watched them with a gloomy gaze. For a moment his expression became enigmatic. At this time, Nangong Liuyun's initial shock had passed. Afterwards his eyes filled with worry. His white, long, slender fingers stroked Su Luo's face. He looked at her tenderly and with concern. Actually, the Luo Luo before was already beautiful. Su Luo expressed her agreement. She also liked that small delicate face. Nangong Liuyun organized his words, and used the most tactful tone to say, this king had never disdained your appearance. Why would you be so depressed over it? Huh. Su Luo's forehead wrinkled, not really understanding. Nangong Liuyun sighed with endless heartache. Using a knife on your face must really hurt, right? Was it really necessary? This king likes you the person, no matter how you looked. This king will always like you. Su Luo finally understood what Nangong Liuyun was trying to say with his tactful words. So this guy thought that she felt inferior about her looks compared to his. And afterwards she had plastic surgery? Su Luo's pair of eyes ignited into flames. Little by little, the flame spread in every direction. Chapter 973, Nangong Liuyun. 8. Nangong Liuyun jumped in fear and quickly retreated. However, Su Luo got a hold of his robe and snorted coldly. Who did you say got plastic surgery? This girl didn't look beautiful before? Beautiful, beautiful. The absolutely aggressive Nangong Liuyun turned into an obedient kitten in front of Su Luo. Only then did Su Luo let him go and heavily humphed. How could I get plastic surgery? Simply pure nonsense. I tell you, this appearance is this girl's real one. The face before was just a mask. How can this be? Could it be got hit with alter the appearance to change the reflection technique? Nangong Liuyun was indeed deserving of being called well-read. All he needed was a hint to understand. Emit him. Su Luo proudly raised an eyebrow. Why? Nangong Liuyun expressed his puzzlement. He looked up and down, seizing up Su Luo's devastatingly and exceptionally beautiful appearance. The more he looked at this face, the more he loved it. He really wanted to kiss it. Nangong Liuyun looked at this face that was a feast to the eyes, and nearly salivated. Su Luo crossed her arms like a queen, glanced at him, proudly raised her chin and indifferently said, probably afraid that I would grow up being too beautiful. These words, although beyond narcissistic, but was really not far from the truth. Just when Su Luo was standing in that proud posture, she suddenly felt a dark shadow attack towards her, and in the next moment she was already enveloped tightly in Nangong Liuyun's embrace. Nangong Liuyun hugged her tightly, with astonishing strength, almost squeezing out all the air from her lungs. Lighter, a little lighter. Su Luo didn't mind being hugged by him in such a public place, but she did care about her own life and safety. Nangong Liuyun smiled gently, his strong arms relaxing slightly, but still keeping a strong embrace on her waist, not allowing her to struggle free. He rested his chin on her shoulder, smelling the light fragrance of her body, his mood gradually calming down little by little. Being separated for 2 years, he could finally hug the real her, and not just in his dreams. This was really great. Their surroundings were quiet. There was an ambiguous feeling lingering and circling in the air. Looking at this emotional scene, Ziyan wanted to discreetly withdraw. But there was another not-so-discreet person in this place. His name was Ouyang Yunqi. Seeing the tightly embracing figures, Yunqi's eyes narrowed dangerously, both hands clenched tightly into fists making the clear sound of joints cracking. Let her go. Yunqi calmly, step by step, walked over to the embracing couple as if nobody else was there. His eyes flashed with a strange calmness, like the calm before a storm. Nangong Liuyun was completely immersed in the land of warmth and tenderness that was hard to pull out of. Now being suddenly interrupted, he immediately felt unhappy. He let go of Su Luo little by little, and pushed her behind him. He was so stingy that he wouldn't even let Yunqi look at Su Luo. Say it again. Nangong Liuyun smiled lightly at Yunqi, but his smile didn't reach his eyes were as cold as ice. This Nangong Liuyun, full of aggressiveness, his face showed an overwhelmingly arrogant strength. Yunqi's heart was filled with indescribable coldness, however. He didn't flinch and even took a step forward. I said, I met Luo Luo earlier than you. Luo Luo and I were together long before you came. You're the one who should scram. Yunqi sneered at Nangong Liuyun, hardly showing any weakness. Nangong Liuyun's impossibly handsome face stiffened for a split second. Bang! Nangong Liuyun's answered Yunqi with a heavy punch. Yunqi had guarded against this, making use of concealing technique, but his speed couldn't match Nangong Liuyun's, and a fist still ruthlessly smashed him in the face. Chapter 974, Nangong Liuyun 9. Yunqi's entire body fell to the ground, blood flowing out of his lips. He cut a very sorry figure. However, Yunqi could also be considered a tough guy. Not only wasn't he scared, on the contrary, he smiled full of joy. He wiped the blood at the corner of his lips, raised an eyebrow to look at Su Luo. His lips curled into a sunny smile as he said, Luo Luo, no wonder you don't want to forgive me. It turned out you have a new love that made you forget your previous love. Su Luo frowned. Yunqi's actions made her despise him even more. Ouyang Yunqi, you still have the face to say these words? Su Luo laughed coldly. Yunqi deliberately said these words. Wasn't it just to provoke and threaten her? Since he wasn't even afraid of telling people the matter of crossing over, then what was she afraid of? She had the strength, and she also had Nangong Liuyun's covering her, as well as beautiful teacher's protection. Who would dare to accuse her of being an evildoer? In contrast to Yunqi, could he really be able to stay out of it? Yunqi looked at Nangong Liuyun whose fists were tightly clenched, then looked at Su Luo whose eyebrows were furrowed. He laughed lightly. Luo Luo, is there really no place for me in your heart? Su Luo smiled coldly. Yunqi, you have said enough. Yunqi shook his head, smiling bitterly. His face was as pale as snow. I searched the entire world to finally find you, but you don't want me anymore. Su Luo's heart suddenly was obstructed. Next she unconsciously pressed on that place. Nangong Liuyun's face was cold and ruthless, as if enveloped by a dark cloud. It was so dark that water nearly dripped out. The two people's dialogue ruthlessly told him one thing. These two people really had a past. His Luo Luo, in the past really. Nangong Liuyun's malicious gaze shot towards Yunqi. He stomped over in large strides and directly clenched Yunqi's neck. This man must die. However, Yunqi laughed. You can kill me, but you won't erase the past. Nangong Liuyun, from the beginning you were the losing party. Nangong Liuyun's face seemed to be covered in dark clouds. His strong and powerful hand suddenly pulled back. Yunqi continued to laugh. His smiling expression was as splendid as flowers that bloom in spring. It's a pity that child hadn't even been born yet but already. Slap. Su Luo fiercely slapped Yunqi in the face. The slap was very strong, such that a distinct palm print suddenly appeared on Yunqi's fair face. The tears in Su Luo's eyes without any warnings rolled down. This matter, she had buried it deep in her heart. That was a part of her past she couldn't touch. But Yunqi, in order to provoke Nangong Liuyun's jealousy, he unscrupulously and without the slightest scruple said it out loud. Yunqi, I really deeply regret that I would meet such a cruel and unscrupulous bastard like you. Su Luo sucked in a deep breath, both hands clenched tightly into fists. Yunqi looked at Su Luo, eyes calm as the moonlight. Luo, go back with me. Nangong Liuyun breathing stopped in a split second. He looked at Yunqi in disbelief, then his disbelieving gaze turned to look at Su Luo. Yunqi took a deep breath and slowly said again, I know the way back, let's go back together, okay? Nangong Liuyun's eyebrows was tightly wrinkled. Although the rage in his heart rushed to the sky, Nangong Liuyun still refrained from immediately choking Yunqi to death. Because Yunqi's words become more and more dangerous, making him more and more afraid. Su Luo only coldly looked at Yunqi, with an icy cold eyes and not saying a word. Her gaze was like a flat desert without a single wave. Yunqi looked at her with burning eyes, full of unlimited expectations and attacking power. Nangong Liuyun's entire person was stunned to a stop. He took several steps back. At this moment, he felt like his presence was superfluous. As if these two people were from the same world, and he was removed from this world on the outside looking in. Chapter 975, Soaring Rage, 1. This kind of seriousness filled Nangong Liuyun's heart full of panic. Nangong Liuyun's gaze was sharp as ice blades, ruthlessly shooting toward Su Luo's body, as if he wanted to tear her to pieces. Su Luo had a very bad promotion in her heart. Nangong. Su Luo grabbed Nangong Liuyun's hand, trying to explain. She opened her mouth, about to speak, and hesitated, not knowing how she ought to explain. Because those things had truly happened, even though it was in her past life. Nangong Liuyun, in an ice-cold manner, looked at Su Luo. He was waiting for her explanation. So long as she said that there was nothing between her and Yunqi, he would definitely believe it. Nangong Liuyun, full of an imposing manner, possessed a strong oppressive feeling and insufferably arrogant aggressiveness. His gaze seemed tranquil on the surface, carrying a bit of hopefulness and appeal. Just with that kind of unblinkingly gaze, he stared at Su Luo. It was as if Su Luo's throat was choked by someone, like the weighty Mount Tai was pressing down on her head. She wanted to speak, yet she was unable to say anything. Just like this, the two people quietly looked at each other. As time passed, Nangong Liuyun's hope and expectation were gradually replaced with disappointment and despair. Su Luo took a deep breath. Just when she was about to explain, Nangong Liuyun suddenly tightened his hands around hers. His strength was too great and too sudden that he nearly crushed all the bones in her wrist. Nangong Liuyun pulled Su Luo along, turned around and left with big strides. His speed was very fast, so fast that Su Luo nearly couldn't keep up with his footsteps, stumbling while running after him. Ziyan silently watched as Nangong Liuyun dragged away Su Luo and noiselessly sighed. Forget it. The matter between a young couple. It's better that she doesn't interfere. It's better if she just returned to Purgatory City to play. The outside world was really too lackluster. Ziyan turned around and wanted to leave, but saw Ouyang Yunqi unsteadily standing up from the ground. Ziyan was staring at Yunqi, not without some disgust. Male third wheel, you just like to dig in other people's corner. The corner of Yunqi's mouth pulled slightly, unconcerned. He turned around to leave. Hey, Ouyang Yunqi, I warn you, Luo is third senior brothers. You had better remember it. Ziyan put both hands on her hips and roared at Ouyang Yunqi's back as he left. Yunqi's figure paused, confidently waving his hand back towards her. So long as the hoe is used well, there is no corner one can't dig. Finished speaking, he left carefree. The only one left was Ziyan, who stood rigidly in place with a constipated look on her face. She clenched her fists tightly, itching to smash Yunqi to death with her fist. This shameless male third wheel. Humph. Yunqi was unbridled and confident in front of Ziyan, but when he turned his body around, at an angle no one could see, his expression was a scene of loneliness. Watching Nangong Liuyun and Su Luo's back as they left, the expression in his eyes was complicated. There was jealousy and anger, there was also melancholy and being at a loss. Ultimately, all the moods came together to form into a belief. Luo, you must be mine, Yunqi's. Nangong Liuyun, I'll await for the day you kneel before me. Yunqi knew, at present, he was by far not Nangong Liuyun's opponent. Today, Nangong Liuyun didn't kill him only because the news he revealed shocked and confused Nangong Liuyun. After Nangong Liuyun returned to his senses, then he wouldn't necessarily be this lucky. He must work hard to cultivate. Finished thinking, Yunqi left with large strides. Nangong Liuyun, in the throes of rage, nearly lost his reasoning. He pulled Su Luo along and quickly walked forward. As for where he was going, he himself didn't even know. His feet seemed to be soaring on clouds and mist, with speed that was extremely fast. Not long after, they entered the mountains. Su Luo was being led along so fast until she nearly couldn't breathe. But Nangong Liuyun in the midst of a rage was too frightening. His face was fiend-like, as if he was an Azura that walked out from the bloody prison of a battlefield, murderous-looking. All the tenderness was put away at this moment. This kind of him scared Su Luo until her whole body gave off cold sweat. Chapter 976, Soaring Rage, 2. Nangong Liuyun directly walked forward, his complexion so dark that water was about to drip out. In spite of Su Luo's struggle, his strength remained powerful and forceful. Su Luo's wrist was pulled by him until it nearly shattered, and she weakly spoke. Nangong Liuyun, loosen your grip a little, okay? It was as if Nangong Liuyun's face was enveloped by cold frost, his whole body emitting a dangerous atmosphere. Not only did his footsteps not stop, instead he walked even faster. He continuously pulled her, with her staggering along, nearly causing Su Luo to fall down. Nangong Liuyun being like this, how should she appease him? Su Luo felt that her head was getting big from this problem. Don't know how far they walked. Finally, Nangong Liuyun stopped at a flowing stream in the woods, deep in the mountains with towering ancient trees. His rear view was emitting a dark and angry atmosphere, filled with a murderous aura that wouldn't allow people to approach. Su Luo didn't open her mouth, only watching him. Suddenly, Nangong Liuyun turned his body around, and directly pushed her up against a tall ancient tree with a trunk the width of which needed 10 people to encircle it. Nangong Liuyun's face darkened until it practically squeezed out a drop of water, and he very fiercely pinched Su Luo's chin. Su Luo, are you so incapable of enduring loneliness? It's merely been 2 years. You couldn't help but to engage in improper relationships? The atmosphere in Nangong Liuyun's eyes was so dangerous, fierce, and not showing any trace of mercy. Su Luo tried to explain. Things aren't what you think. Nangong Liuyun coldly glared at Su Luo, stressing each word with a dark tone. It's not like what I was thinking. Then what is it like? You tell me. When did you hook up with Ouyang Yunqi? Speak. Nangong Liuyun practically roared out these last few words. Not far away, a mother bear which had brought 2 cubs out for a walk, and was shaken by Nangong Liuyun voice. The 3 bears immediately looked to the sky and spit out blood. They collapsed on the spot and died. An unprecedented sense of alarm rose from the bottom of Su Luo's heart. Su Luo paused, calmly watching him. Yunqi, you actually call him Yunqi? Nangong Liuyun, not waiting for Su Luo to finish speaking, roared towards her in an angry tone. You call him so intimately, what about me? Nangong Liuyun, in a rage, tightened his grip on Su Luo's slim shoulder. Spainful, let go. Su Luo had a kind of feeling of her arm being nearly ripped off from the base. Nangong Liuyun, you let go of me. A trace of anger flashed in Su Luo's gaze. You call me Nangong Liuyun, but you call him Yunqi? Nangong Liuyun suddenly laughed darkly, and all of a sudden he let go of Su Luo. He took a few steps back, looking at Su Luo with an agonized gaze. Su Luo, feel your conscience. Did you do anything shameful and unworthy of me? This kind of Nangong Liuyun almost made Su Luo unable to bear it. She tried to explain. I have never done anything that would shame you. You shouldn't deliberately make trouble when there is no reason, okay? I'm making trouble without reason? Su Luo, you really can say this out loud, Nangong Liuyun, with a grief-stricken and indignant gaze, pointed at Su Luo. Su Luo suddenly felt her head becoming too big. She never really good at handling the emotional aspects of disputes. Now Nangong Liuyun was infuriated to this degree. What should she do? Su Luo felt that the more she spoke, the more mistakes she made. Thus, she simply remained silent. However, her silence thoroughly offended Nangong Liuyun. Are you tacitly agreeing? Nangong Liuyun's gaze was like a sharp dagger, ruthlessly piercing toward Su Luo's heart. Tacitly agreeing to what? Su Luo lifted up her palm-sized face with stubbornness flashing through her eyes. Speak. When did you start fooling around with him in the end? Nangong suddenly grabbed Su Luo's chin very fiercely, and his eyes spouted out flames of anger. Speak. After he met her, he had investigated her, and got all of her information from when she was young till now. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.